Are we live? I think we are.
Yeah.
Welcome, everybody. I am here today with Lewis from Perspective Philosophy YouTube channel, and we're going to talk about veganism, and I think more specifically, more precisely, whether or not eating meat is ethical. And, as you guys obviously know, my position is that it's perfectly fine to eat meat. I don't know if I'd call it ethical, but we'll get into that in just a second. And your position, and correct me if I'm wrong, Lewis, is that, you know, the only ethical way is veganism, or it's unethical to eat meat?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on like the circumstance. I would say that veganism is typically in the West, and then given our like abilities to avoid animal products, then yeah, I would say that veganism is the ethical stance. I mean, it could be argued that the stances I'm talking about, though, when we say that that would be unethical to avoid meat, let's say like you're on a desert island or anything, it's
Of
easily
course.
arguable that that's still vegan. So um because of like the definition of veganism. But I think you get my point.
Yeah. Except for these extreme scenarios where you basically have no choice, or maybe some kind of tribe in the Arctic or something like that, right? I understand that, but in modern Western society, it's essentially, well, unethical. That's your
Yeah,
stance, yeah?
yeah, I would say veganism was a moral obligation.
Obligation. Okay. So, well, define veganism for us, just so we're on the same page.
Well, I mean, the definition I typically use is that of the vegan societies. What is it? A philosophy and a way of living which seeks to exclude, as far as possible and practicable, all forms of exploitation to and exploitation from. No, is it? I'll have to get the definition of animals for the benefits of humans, society. I said humans, the environment, and animals. So the idea is that we don't cause unnecessary suffering to any sentient being, um, and we do that in relation to the consequences and the intentions that we invoke when we commit the actions involving these sentient beings. So you don't harm a sentient being. If you harm a sentient being, you cause it suffering, and suffering is overall morally wrong. At least an unnecessary suffering is morally wrong. We can get into why unnecessary and not necessary if you like. But
That sounds very subjective, though. What's necessary?
well, I wouldn't say so. I think what we can invoke then is like the ought implies can. So as we say, like necessary suffering, for example, would be something like a surgery. You get surgery, you go through a lot of suffering, but it's necessary in order to sustain your life. For example, you don't really have a choice. It's kind of like as in the desert island scenario, where you would have to cause suffering, but you wouldn't be obligated not to cause suffering because you wouldn't really have a choice in the first place. If you can't avoid suffering, I think you should avoid suffering.
So, unless you can prove that humans don't require meat in order to survive as a species, I'm not talking about some mutant individuals who seem to be making it work. Unless you can prove that we don't require meat to survive as a species, then I'm vegan, aren't I? By eating
Well, I
meat?
mean, I mean, this is. I mean, I think that it would be one. I think they would both have to make the point, because I think that you're taking an authoritative stance over animals, and I think that by doing so, you're the one that's saying that you have to eat meat and that this is necessary suffering. And I think if that's the case, then you have to show that eating meat is not only natural and um, normal, but obviously necessary. That you must do it in order to survive. Also, I would
Well,
like
I
to say,
think, not to, sorry to interrupt you, but I think this is, as a society, we understand that it is. That's why we do it. And I think the burden of proof is actually on you to prove that it isn't. I would say that. I mean, not, maybe you disagree.
no, I would disagree. Yeah, because I think that the burden of proof lies in the judgment in relation to those who are being affected by the judgment, and we're talking about a lot of individuals who are being slaughtered on a day-to-day basis to sustain this. Also, I think that there is substantial evidence, well, at least arguing the case that vegans can not only be survive but thrive on a vegan diet. So. I mean, don't get me wrong. I wasn't coming in to ideally debate nutrition. It's not something that I'm an expert in. but it's something that I think can be argued. I mean, we can go down that line if you like. It's up to you.
Well, I'm no nutritional expert either, but it's pretty, well, it should be common sense and common knowledge. The reason why it isn't is because people have been brainwashed by the ideology of veganism, in my opinion, to think that it's not necessary. But I mean, unless you reject evolution, I would like to.
I don't think you have to reject evolution, for example. I mean, if you look at the anthropology of our bodies, I don't see any that much evidence for being carnivorous animals, for example, especially since you eat a very meat-based diet, don't you? And I mean, omnivorous, I can see, like, obviously there is maybe some uh, evidence that will have some biological indications of having been omnivorous. But I mean, most of our adaptations, let's take our teeth, for example, are relating to cooking food. So, like, our teeth are very small, they're blunt, they're related to having very soft foods, related to cooking and stuff like that. So I think we're croctivorous. I think that the foods that we eat in Western society, I think if we look back at the anthropological evidence of, let's say, fossil samples like feces and fossils, fossilized feces, we'll see that they have like a fiber content of over 100 grams in the fiber in the feces, which is considerably high, which shows that they're having at least a pretty high plant-based diet. Obviously, it does depend upon how much you can look into this, because the problem is, and I do recognize this, that when people eat various animals, the chances are that the animal flesh will actually decay and it won't fossilize as well in feces and stuff. So we seem to think that even if they were eating a lot of animals, we probably wouldn't have the evidence for it anyway. So it's something that I do acknowledge, but I don't think there's any anthropological evidence to say that we should not eat a plant-based diet. And I also think that the medical evidence for now, in relation to things like preventing heart disease, the effects of high amounts of saturated fat and cholesterol, I think these are things to be considered. And I think also medical organizations such as the American Dietetics Association, the British Dietetics Association, have both okayed a vegan diet for all stages of life. And I think that being reputable organizations, I don't see an issue there.
Yeah, that's an appeal to authority, though. Not only is that a fallacy, I reject
Yeah.
those.
Yeah. But I mean, if we're talking about appeals to authority, then we can talk about your appeal to common sense as being an appeal to popularity.
Okay, well, that wasn't really my argument, but
Well,
it
it
was
was. You
my
said,
argument. No, it wasn't my argument for eating meat. It was my argument that this is what we do. This is accepted. This is what is not considered immoral. This is just our nature. This is who we are, and everybody understands it as such. Veganism these are the fringes where people are all of a sudden coming out, disregarding our millions of years of our evolution in our history. And they're coming out of the woodwork saying that what we're doing is morally wrong. Not only that, they're also saying that we could survive without eating meat when they don't have any evidence for this. And insofar as these studies, look, you could bring the studies at a later date if you want to discuss them, but I'm going to tell you right now, because I looked at the studies, obviously not all of them, but I looked at the studies. There's no proof that meat causes any disease. It doesn't exist in the scientific literature. That's all lies and BS. But again, we didn't come here to discuss the studies. But if at a later date you want to do that, we could definitely do that. I feel
yeah.
confident in saying what I'm saying. No science exists that, but my point is, just look at it logically, right? Because we know there are agendas, we know there's corruption in science, we know people lie, so on and so forth. All of this has been exposed at the very least. But if you
Yeah.
look at it logically, insofar as blaming meat for modern disease, it's an ancient food. How does an ancient food cause modern disease? Logically, that doesn't make any sense. And if, just because we ate plants, and obviously I agree that we are omnivorous carnivores. Those are not mutually exclusive the way I look at it. I look at the world, and the way science looks at the world, those two are not mutually exclusive. Just because we ate some plants, basically, that doesn't mean that we can survive on only plants. And insofar as fossilized feces, they have never found any fiber in any feces. And this could be the problem that you outlined because, certain things don't preserve very well. They don't fossilize. But prior to 50,000 years ago, there has never been any evidence of, in our feces at the very least, of having ingested any fiber. And insofar as meat goes, there has. So, I mean, I know we're in a bit of a pickle here because your background is philosophy and I don't really have one, right? I could talk about all of it to a certain degree. So, but
Yeah.
I'm not going to concede that we could survive without eating meat because it's just a ludicrous idea. It has no scientific backing. It's completely wrong. And, we can even look at all the vegans that are failing and all the people that are healing with meat, which isn't to say that some people could make it work. That's fine. But the way you prove a hypothesis, which is what veganism proposes would be humans are herbivores, or at the very least that we can be herbivores. If you want to prove that hypothesis, you have to prove it time and time and time again. And as soon as you have one failure, your hypothesis is completely and utterly destroyed, which isn't to say that some people
Yeah.
couldn't survive as herbivores. I
See,
can't. I know that.
well, I mean, for one, I would say that most of what you brought up was just assertion. Like, I understand that. Like, we're not going to get into the empirical evidence at this time. But I mean, for the most part, I would make the absolute opposite assertion. I would say, given the evidence I've seen, the likelihood of calcified cholesterol in your vascular system goes up massively with consuming meat. You will face a greater likelihood of dying from various chronic diseases and perhaps the 14 most leading causes of death. So, I mean, yeah, we are in a bit of a pickle because we did agree that we're going to be on an ethics debate. And I'm happy to say that so long as you accept that veganism is a diet that is possible and practicable, I'll accept that a carnivorous diet is possible and practicable. Now, I don't believe it is. I hold the absolute opposite view. In fact, all the evidence I've seen has argued for the fact that it will cause early death and chronic disease. But I'm willing to give your position the benefit of the doubt, and I hope that you will do the same for mine.
So how come the longest lived populations on the planet eat a ton of animal products? All the blue zones, for example, consume a ton of animal products, and yet they're the longest lived people. Hong Kongese, for example, which isn't to say that they don't have any of the modern diseases because every modern population does, but they live longer than anybody else on the planet and they eat more meat by far than anybody else. So the evidence isn't on your side, actually. Where you're coming from is a very narrow-minded worldview that has somehow, because of propaganda and advertising, has managed to grab a lot of impressionable minds of young people, but it's completely and utterly false, and it's just impossible.
I mean, from what I'm aware, the vegan Adventists are the longest living population in the world. At least the Adventists are the longest living, with the vegans coming second to the pescatarians.
No, the Hong Kongese live longer than they do. No, they don't.
I'll have to look
and there's no vegan. You can bring the studies. I've looked at the study. Vegan Adventists are outlived by pescatarian Adventists. Pescatarian Adventists live longer than vegan Adventists. Okay, so within that little population, which is scientific,
that's all-cause mortality, and I would like to look at the modulating factors in relation to why they're dying younger, like on average. I mean,
who is dying younger? The
I mean, yeah, in the Adventist study. I mean, to be fair, those same people are living, considerably longer than the average American, aren't they? They're living considerably longer than the average individual. So it's not like that diet is not even practicable. I mean, even if they were dying,
but they're not vegan. Adventists aren't vegan. They're vegetarian.
The vegan
Adventists
are vegan.
The vegan Adventists don't live as long as the ones that eat animal products.
Well, what was said is that they don't live as long as they have a higher rate of overall all-cause mortality than the pescatarians in the study. That being said, they still have a higher they have a higher longevity than all of the other groups, including
not the vegan ones.
Yeah,
the vegan one. Most Adventists are vegetarian. And even by that study, because I read it, even by the standard in the study, if they eat meat once a month, they're considered vegetarian. That's how the study class these people that eat meat once a month. Maybe it's I don't remember exactly, but they do eat meat, and they're still classed as vegetarians in some of the Adventist studies. Now, if you want to bring the studies, we could talk about them. But even if that's true, where the Adventists live longer than, let's say, the Hong Kongese, and they don't, uh, that still doesn't mean that everybody could sustain veganism, because the people that eat more meat live longer and have better health outcomes than, you know. And the whole thing about the vegan diet, there aren't any long-term studies on vegans. They just don't exist. So what are we even talking about? You know what I mean? It's like, where are these long-term vegans who have had vegan kids, who have multi-generation studies on vegan families? They don't exist. Why? Because
Well, it's
because
because it's not.
90% of vegans quit the diet because they cannot sustain it.
Well, I don't think that. I mean, if we look at how where veganism's come from for the most part, it's only been around since 1940, and it's only gained popularity in recent years. I would put that down to moral progression. Now, as I've said, we can have a separate debate on nutrition. I'm happy to do
Mhm.
it. I'm happy to come back and have a whole debate on nutrition. Now, I'm willing to give your position the benefit of the doubt. I mean, I would normally look at a carnivorous
What's my
diet from the.
position?
I mean, as on that a carnivorous diet is both healthy and possible, right?
No,
That is
that's not my
possible and credible.
position. No, well, if no, my position is that humans as a species cannot sustain the vegan diet. They cannot
So,
live healthy lives on the vegan diet. That's my position. And
but
I I
what?
I knew we
How
would
would
run into this.
Yeah, well, of course we're going to run into this. We're a vegan. I'm a vegan, and you're a carnivore. Of course we're going to we're going to run into it. But I mean, this is the point. This is why I said, like, do you want to focus the debate around ethics? You said yes. So here we
Yeah,
are.
but yeah, but I don't live in La La Land. If you want to talk about ethics, how do we ignore the fact that the vegan diet destroys health?
Well, I mean,
It's
it's not
completely
a
and
fact.
utterly destructive.
You can't just assert it as a fact. You'd have to give
Why
me
not?
empirical evidence. But well, why can't you assert facts as the truth? Because then you're just
No, no,
questioning
no,
what truth
no,
is.
no, 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 no. I'm not saying I can't assert facts. I'm saying, why isn't this a fact when we see this
Oh, I'm
every
saying, like,
day?
give us the evidence. Give me the evidence that
So
that
you haven't
vegan.
you haven't seen you haven't seen all these vegans quitting the diet saying they can't sustain it. You haven't seen any of those testimonials?
I've seen a couple of vegans. I haven't seen the majority of vegans quitting the diet, but I have seen a lot of meat eaters have heart attacks.
Well, I mean, what you call meat eaters are people who eat primarily plants. So let's be honest about that. They eat more plants than they eat, which isn't to say that whole food plant-based is, as bad as eating some of these processed plant foods that people eat. But if we're going to be honest,
If we're
these
talking
people
about
are,
anecdotal, if we're talking about anecdotal evidence, I could even pull up the fact
what do
that
you mean by anecdotal evidence?
well, the fact that you would say, like, just by pure observation, the observation of experience, that we're pulling into people's, like, for example, that vegans are unhealthy, that carnivores are unhealthy. I could say that people who I've seen consume more amounts of animal products, which is, for example, in relation to people who I've seen go to the gym, work out more, and eat a high, let's say, ketogenic based diet, tend to have blood pressure problems, tend to have high amounts of inflammation. I've seen this. It's not something that I really want to get into, because I'm just saying asserting one experience, and you're asserting another. What do we learn? Absolutely nothing. Now, I said that we
No,
can bring.
there's a difference. There's a difference here, because you're saying you're taking people who eat both plants and meat, and you're saying they're unhealthy. I'm taking people who eat only plants, and I'm saying they're unhealthy. So it's not the same thing. It's a completely different thing. And if
Oh, so,
anything,
so you okay then? How? So what you're arguing then is that the plants are what's causing the chronic disease. So
I
why
would
is it
say
that the Adventists in the study had the lowest rates of chronic disease?
I would say it's processed foods first and foremost that are causing chronic disease. The reason why the Adventists have low rates of disease is because they eat animal products. They're
Not the
not
vegan.
vegan. But out of out of something like 60,000, I don't remember the numbers exactly, this is a rough estimate, out of something like 60,000 people studied, in that study I think 3,000 of them were vegan, or so they say. Now the reason why the Adventists, just to answer your question quickly, live so long is because these people, they retire in their old age and they move to Loma Linda, California, from all over the United States, right? So they have there's a self-selection bias going on here. No old person that is falling apart and dying is going to move from Texas to Loma Linda, California to retire, right? These people are healthy. This is the people that are studied in these Seventh-day Adventist studies are self-selected. You could even say genetic freaks, people who have taken care of
Oh,
themselves. They no, this is true. They don't smoke, they don't drink, they exercise, they have better, they're
well, yeah.
just in general, in comparison to the population, they're healthier, not just, and it's not necessarily because of what they eat, which also has something to do with that, no doubt about it, but it's because they don't smoke, they don't drink, they exercise, and they're just healthier people. And the people studied in Loma Linda, California, they move over there, they select themselves in their old age. They have like this beautiful resort that they live in with a hospital dedicated to curing and combating heart disease. So these people have a whole support system, not only a community, but also a medical community that makes sure that these people have a healthy heart. And why do they have a cardiology department at Loma Linda, California? Why is their whole hospital dedicated to fixing their hearts? Because they're sick like everybody else, except they're taken care of better than the rest
Right,
of
I
than the
do think that
average
they're
person.
capable. I would say that they're definitely capable of getting sick. I don't think vegans are like invincible. I don't think that's something I would argue. I would also
Yeah,
like
but
to
by
say
and
that
large, they're not vegan, so they eat animal
yeah,
products. The
yeah,
majority
but
of them eat.
yeah. Well, there we go. Then that's all well and good, and that explains one of the main reasons why they might have a cardiology department, doesn't it? But the thing is that what I would like to say is like, what is it on a vegan diet that I cannot obtain on a that I would obtain from a carnivorous diet that would prevent me from living a healthy lifestyle that I will get sick and die in a relatively short period of time. I mean, compared to the general population.
Well, that's not the statement I'm making, because I do believe some people can sustain the vegan diet with the use of drugs and medications and the occasional cheating that they didn't never tell us about. However, what I am saying is that if the whole world were to go vegan today, and we were to have vegan babies, a lot of people would first and foremost go infertile. This is like well documented.
Well, I
Vegans.
mean, I mean, like from what I've seen, like the only times of infertility I've seen among vegans is with like low BMI and low amounts of fat intake. I mean, we're not talking about the average vegan who's actually eating enough calories and having enough fat to sustain that endocrine system. I mean, and I think that this is just assertion. Like as I said, we can bring the studies in and we can talk about nutrition another time. I've offered that. I'm happy to
Okay.
do it.
But
Like,
you want me to concede that that all of us can sustain a vegan diet, and I don't think we can. I know we can't, because it's inherently nutritionally deficient, the vegan diet.
well,
And
in what respect? In what respect is it nutritionally deficient?
well,
What's
you
essential?
can't get vitamin B, D, you can't get vitamin A, you
Well,
can't
vitamin
get
B.
vitamin K2, you can't get DHA or EPA, you can't get enough of certain amino acids. I mean, there's a ton of
I
deficiencies
mean,
on the
I
vegan
mean, if
diet.
we're talking about vitamin B, I'm assuming you mean B12 because
Right.
I mean, yeah. Well, you can supplement that first of all, can't you? I mean, unless you're trying to say that the supplement is inadequate,
So
and
you
not only
think,
is it inadequate, but it's also that it's not as advantageous as eating animal products for one. Because I think it could be argued that taking the supplement is by far a better option than taking an animal product, which could cause chronic disease. I mean, if we're talking about things like vitamin K, I'm pretty sure you can get K1 from leafy greens. I was at K2 from leafy greens. And when we talk about DHA and EPA, like we usually consume AHA from things like flax seeds, and that's converted. Some people can't convert it, so they could take a supplement which is algae. I mean, this is fairly rare, but they do have genetic issues where they can't convert DHA, APA to DHA, in which case they can take an algae-based supplement. Even for vitamin K, I'm pretty sure is it there's a it's fermented soy product that has vitamin K in it. There is options available to individuals, especially in the Western Hemisphere, to fortify and supplement the diet if necessary. I mean, I don't think it is necessary for the most part, except for the vitamin B12. But this can be done, and I think the fact that most women over the age of 50 are recommended to have a B12 supplement, and the vast majority of our society faces things like iron deficiencies, even though they're omnivorous and such. I think there's something to be said about the good fortune we have to live in a society in which we can supplement and fortify foods to prevent diseases which would have harmed us in the past. I mean, nobody wants to bring scurvy back. Nobody wants rickets again. Like, these things have been, for the most part, removed because of our ability to give people medications to treat these diseases.
Yeah, I would say that you're experimenting on people by giving them supplements. And I would also say, first and foremost, I would say that the mere fact that you admit that you need to take supplements in addition to the vegan diet, because supplements are not part of the vegan diet, they are a supplement to the diet. So logically, you're admitting that the vegan diet is nutritionally deficient. Now, I would like to understand, and obviously I disagree, why you think it's okay to experiment on people with these medicines, because that's what they are. Why you think it's ethically okay to experiment on these people? Because the efficacy, hold on
What
one
do you
second.
mean by experiment?
Hold on, because the efficacy of these supplements was never proven. There isn't a single study that shows us that all these supplements that you've mentioned are actually effective. And the reason why they would have to take these supplements is because you just took meat out of their diet. And the reason why older people and omnivorous people are deficient in a lot of these things is because, once again, they eat primarily plants and not enough meat. So you're really just proving my point that
Well, not really, because I mean, if we look at like B12, for example, if you go into a doctor's surgery with anemia and they realize it's because you've got B12 deficiency, well, they're going to give you a B12, and they give you B12 because it will raise your B12 levels. They treat you with that because it is well documented that it will raise your B12 levels and allow you to sustain your life. I mean, you can get a direct B12 shot into your bloodstream, man. It's not something that it's even. I don't see where you're saying that there's not enough evidence to support the absorption of these supplements.
So what you're talking about is a vitamin. But hold on, you made an error there, because what you're talking about is a vitamin B12 deficiency. By the time these blood tests revealed that you have a vitamin B12 deficiency, and this is well documented, I could show you, I could link a documentary later on. By the time you get diagnosed with a B12 deficiency, there will have already been neurological damage. So yes, supplements will work once you are extremely deficient in something. They will boost your B12 levels. However, it's never been shown that they work prophylactically, and it has never been shown that they are actually safe, because hold on, let me finish. The forms of vitamins that they inject in your vein or whatever, they're not the natural form of B12. It's a synthesized form of B12 that kind of looks like B12, which, because of how our bodies work and how our bodies have evolved to accept B12 from animal products, I don't know exactly the biochemistry, but the receptors that uptake this vitamin, and again, forgive me if I'm using the wrong terminology here, if you slightly change the chemical, which is really physical makeup of this vitamin, it no longer really fits. It kind of fits, and it might alleviate a lot of the problems when you're very deficient. However, what the side effects of that are, by using an unnatural, synthetic, toxic possibly, and some supplements are definitely toxic, drug, we don't really know what the long-term side effects of that are. Therapeutically, yes, you can save people, bring them back from the brink of death with synthetic supplements. Definitely, they're very useful. I'm not against supplements in general. However, prophylactically, it has never been shown that they actually work or that they prevent all these diseases. And again, so you are experimenting on these people.
I mean, not really. I don't think we are experimenting. And at first, I think that I'd have to see the evidence to say that it didn't work in any way similar to.
No, you'd have to show evidence that it actually works. I don't have to provide any
yeah.
evidence.
Well, I mean, I agree. Like, we could go into that. I said, like, we can go into the studies. I'll bring studies. You bring studies. We can have a chat about it.
Hmm.
But
But basically, my point that I would like you to address is that you're saying that the vegan diet is inherently deficient, because if you need to supplement with these
well,
questionable supplements, then that's you're
no,
essentially telling people that you can't eat this and instead you must eat that. And to me, that's very authoritarian. And the
well,
way I
no.
see the world, that's very unethical.
Well, I mean, one, I would say that if you're comparing the authoritarian stance that individuals are taking, I think slitting someone's throat is a lot worse than saying, take this supplement. Um,
Animals aren't someone's. Not in my worldview. An animal is not a
Oh,
someone.
okay,
It's a
in your
something.
worldview, but that's an ethical debate I'm willing to have. But the point of the matter is, if an individual is taking an authoritative stance in this situation, is definitely the person eating the animal product. Regardless, I would say that consuming the supplement, you'd have to show that one, consuming the supplement isn't more advantageous when it, from the evidence I've seen, it B12 is absorbed into the bloodstream and does prevent deficiencies, not just treats deficiencies but prevents them. I think as well, naturally, the natural source of B12 was, well water, like groundwater and, unclean, agricultural products. You get small amounts of B12, and if we look at I think is what parietal cells that absorb B12, they prefer smaller doses more frequently. So this actually fits in with how we would absorb B12 in the wild anyway. So I don't see a problem here.
That's
As I
just a
said,
hypothesis. That's a hypothesis that has never been
what?
tested or shown
Come on.
to work.
Hypothesis.
Uh,
Well, the thing is, I haven't seen any data relating to anything you've said. You show me some data, I'll show you some data. That can be the debate next time.
Data insofar as what?
In relation to the efficacy of supplements towards treating and preventing deficiencies, we can go
That's not
into
a
it.
hypothesis. This is no, like, just because you're not aware of the science, then
Well, no, but this is
I
the thing.
don't no I didn't bring any studies, but just because
Okay,
you're
yeah,
like not
yeah, but
aware
you
of what the
can't.
truth.
Yeah, but you can't
But
just
that's not a
assert it's the fact.
hypothesis. This
Yeah,
is
but
a
you can't
fact.
like no, but it's not a fact if you assert it's the fact. It's a fact when you provide evidence that it is the fact. Isn't that right?
Well,
Because
right.
that's
I
how
don't.
facts work.
Well, I could say, the sky is blue, and we could be, underground, and we know that the sky is blue. I don't have to
Oh,
take you
yeah,
outside
okay.
and show you the sky.
Well, I mean, let's say we'd never seen the sky, and you said, "Oh, well, the sky is blue." Then you'd have to give me some
But
evidence that
it's
the sky is blue.
but
I
that's
mean,
it's not
unless
a
you're
fact
saying,
that it's blue. So it's not blue unless you see it. You seeing it makes it blue, makes it a fact? No.
well, I mean, well, yeah, kind of. Actually, I think you can't prove something
Well,
that you.
okay, like when we look at the actual physics, yes, obviously the sky isn't blue. We perceive it as blue, if that's what you mean. I don't know.
Even for the fact, like, let's say I was to assume, like, make an assumption that the I don't know, the sky is green on Venus. I don't know if it is. And I was just like, well, of course the sky is green on Venus. You're not. What would we have to do to prove that the sky was green on Venus? We'd have to go to Venus and see if the sky was green, because that's how evidence works.
Well, all I'm saying is that the evidence is out there and you just don't believe me, basically. You're saying that I'm wrong about the evidence.
Well,
That's all you're
yeah,
saying. And
yeah, but the whole point is I could assert claims about what the evidence I've seen on high meat intake diets, where we say that it increases the likelihood of chronic disease,
yeah, but there's
and
no
you're going to just
evidence.
well,
There's no
the thing
evidence.
that's the thing. I say I've seen evidence. Apparently, that evidence is not evidence.
No. It's not evidence, because all that you've seen is people who eat mostly plants. They don't exercise, they smoke, and people. These researchers basically say, "Oh, it's the meat," when they don't have any proof that it's the meat. Yeah, do these people
I
also
mean,
eat meat? Yes.
we have mechanistic data in relation to, let's say, heme and the increased likelihood of calcification of cholesterol. We'll have evidence in relation to high intakes of cholesterol and saturated fat, and this is mechanistic data, not just population studies. So, like,
No,
I don't.
this data, it doesn't exist insofar as bringing you back to meat causing these diseases. Our body makes cholesterol.
Yeah, well, the body does make cholesterol, but it makes so much cholesterol, doesn't it? It's like saying like, well, our body has a regulatory mechanism, and then when we bypass it, we're saying that it's exactly the same way. It works exactly the same. Well, that's not how it works. Like, our body has a way in which it regulates the cholesterol in our bloodstream, and we're just sidestepping it. Now, that's the point.
Yeah, but it has never been shown that meat has a negative impact on our health. This has never been shown. And it doesn't make any sense evolutionarily. It doesn't make any sense because I would like you to tell me logically. We don't even have to look at studies or science. We all know that's corrupt. Okay, we could agree on that. People lie, as I already stated.
Yeah, but I mean,
explain to me logically, explain it to me logically. How does an ancient food that we evolved eating for at least 2.5 million years, maybe longer if you consider some of these other humanoids or whatever the hell they were as human, whatever, I don't need to get into all that, but how is it that an ancient food that every single population on the planet has always eaten for millions of years, Homo sapiens for hundreds of thousands of years, how does this ancient food cause modern disease? How? Logically.
Well, for looking at it, it's not a modern disease. I mean, we have evidence that there is calcification in the fossils that were found. Like, we have found evidence of like heart disease and cancer, for example, in ancient man. So it's not like it's a modern disease that never happened. It's just
no. This is okay.
People typically.
This is a fact.
People typically did not.
This is a fact. This isn't even debatable. We know that diabetes, heart disease, the rates of diabetes that we currently experience, the rates of heart disease that we currently experience, and all these other.
Not just.
Hold on. Let me finish. Obviously, yes, it has to do with the rate of the disease. There's no debate in the scientific community. These are modern diseases. Okay, we know this. And as far as like you talking about some mummies from 6,000 years ago, well, those people were eating modern foods already. They were part of an agrarian society. You're talking about Egyptian mummies. You're talking about people who ate a lot of grain. So you're proving my point, essentially.
Well, first, the first thing I'd like to say is like when we get back into this, as I said, we can look at the foods and the dietary health consequences of various foods. But the main one thing I've got to say is that when science is about veganism, it's biased, corrupt, and agendaed. When science isn't about veganism, it's fine. Because I'm not going to lie, that seems like it's like, oh, well, the scientific consensus upon this is one thing. And then you say that, oh, but then the scientific consensus about this other related issue, well, that's a load of shit, isn't it?
Yeah, but this isn't just, when I say scientific consensus, this is just a fact. I've never seen anybody even challenge this. Veganism, insofar as being healthy, is not even a fact. This is just a small subset. Most doctors, most nutritionists, most people out there who have taken the time to study nutrition and they've worked with clients, they will tell you that veganism doesn't work. So the consensus when it comes
out of my experience of dealing with nutritionists, and I had to go to nutritionists for my mother, like in relation to her cancer treatment and such. She went to see nutritionists, and those vegan nutritionists even with the other nutritionists. So I mean, like, just saying, like, anyone who's
but
taking
insofar. Look,
like that's an assertion. Like,
no, it's not an assertion. It's a fact. The rates not only have these. It is a fact. It is a fact. Not only have. Let me finish. Not only have these diseases, we cannot observe these diseases at all in ancient populations. There are lower rates of these diseases in people who live a traditional lifestyle. So that's one. Also, these modern diseases have risen in the last century or so, where we were actually able to observe and record these diseases. There's been a sharp rise in these diseases. Hold on, let me finish. Hold on. While at the same time, the consumption of meat has gone down. So this whole idea that meat causes disease doesn't check out.
Has not gone down.
Yes, it has.
What, per capita, like per person, you think that the consumption of meat's gone down?
I've only seen data for the United States. And in the United States, the consumption of red meat has gone down. Pork and chicken have remained roughly stable, maybe dropped a little bit. I think the consumption of milk has plummeted and the diseases went straight up. And the rate of disease has actually coincided with grain consumption
I
and
mean,
refined
I mean,
carbohydrate.
I'll happily, as I said, I'll happily look into all of this and we can discuss it. I'll have an open mind to this. I mean, if you can show me that a vegan diet is not possible or practicable, then we can go through it. And I'll do the opposite for the carnivorous and omnivorous diet. And also, I'll try and show that that I don't think that it is
Look,
healthy.
I know we're not going to agree. Like, and I don't,
wait a minute. Like, I will say this. Like, when we look at in relation to ancient man, there is modulating factors upon mortality. I would like to hope that you understand that, infectious disease and animals murdering people around that time and various other accidental deaths and all that affected how long you would actually survive. I mean, we didn't live particularly that very long in the wild. I think Thomas Hobbes, when he talks about the state of nature, referred to it as nasty, brutish, and short. It's something that I think is quite accurate, that, if you live in the jungle, you're not going to live too long. I mean, unless you have the benefits of what is modern medicine and, society, or the protections of society and so on. That's why we built
10-year-olds today are getting cancer and diabetes. 10-year-olds today are getting these diseases.
Oh, yeah, I agree. I agree. There is problems with the diet that we have today. Now, you're pointing towards, and I think we'll both agree that in some respects, processed foods are to blame. Now, you're pointing towards processed plant foods, and I would probably point towards processed animal products as well. I would say that processed foods are high in amounts of saturated fat and cholesterol, high amounts of carcinogenic chemicals, and so on like that are causing many diseases. However,
I'm not pointing to meat at all, whether it's processed or not. I'm pointing to the stuff that's, if I would point to something, causing diseases, I would point to like the nitrates and the soy that the meat is filled with, and all the stuff that's added to the meat. There's nothing in the meat.
I mean,
what I'm saying, let me finish, please. Hold on. Let me finish. When you look at meat, there's nothing in meat inherently that causes disease. It's all the stuff that we add to it. Now, when it comes to processed plants, let me finish, please. There are inflammatory omega-6 oils, there are toxins, there are things that are already existing in the plants. Plus, when you process these plants, you tend to concentrate a lot of these toxins, and then you're still adding chemicals to it in the processing. That's what makes plant foods problematic. But inherently, plant foods are problematic. Maybe not all of them, maybe not for everybody, but inherently, there's nothing wrong with the meat. So yes, technically it's the processed meat that's the problem, but it's not the fact that we take the meat and we change its constitution. It's the fact that we add something foreign to it. Whereas with plants, you don't have to add anything to it. It already comes with a shitload of toxins.
I mean, I'm not going to lie. I disagree with that entirely. I mean, from what I've seen, the consumption of plant products reduces levels of cancer rates and cancer risk. Things like increased amounts of cruciferous vegetables like broccoli. Also, you've got stuff like when you look at processed meats, they are awful, but red meat is a type 2 carcinogen as well, and is linked to colorectal cancer. There is evidence to say that meat is tied to chronic diseases.
You're talking about correlation. That doesn't prove causation.
Well, I mean, don't get me wrong. Correlation and causation are different, and we can go into the studies themselves. As I said,
you're the one bringing them up. You're the one bringing them up, not me. I'm trying to be as logical as possible about using things that we know for sure.
I mean, I'm trying not to get annoyed at the way you're using logical, but the thing is that it's not logical, right? Because logical, when we're talking about empirical facts, would bring up empirical facts. We would show evidence and data. That's the only way that we could do
right,
it.
Because the reason I don't bring this stuff up is because I assume that you already know the facts, but you don't know the facts. So you want me to build. I understand what you're saying. You need me to build my argument and convince you from like the very bare bones of it, when I'm already assuming that you know these things about, because these are facts. This
Well,
isn't like
yeah, but
you
like,
live.
look at it like
Look,
this.
you live in a vegan bubble. You've been
Well,
brainwashed with this whole ideology of veganism, and it's all bullshit. It really is. So
is it?
you reject the reality that I present, and you say that well, I need to prove it to you. Well, okay, fine. Just because you're not privy to the facts that I present, well, I guess that we shit out of luck because I don't have all the studies necessary or the evidence, the sort of evidence that you would accept as proof of what it is that I'm saying. Whereas I feel confident in the things that I'm saying that they are true and that they are fact. Just because you reject them, that doesn't mean that they're not fact. That doesn't mean that I'm not being
Well,
logical. It just means that you
well,
don't have the same logical base that I do because you've rejected the
that's not
reality
how
of.
that works. I mean, if we're looking at, let's say, our confidence in our beliefs, just having it may be true that we have a belief, but that does not make the belief true. In other words, like I cannot just assert, like I might very well think that veganism is the healthiest, most advantageous diet that a human can adopt in the Western Hemisphere. I might have seen studies, and from all the evidence I've seen, that would be the case. However, you are claiming the absolute opposite. Now, I can't outright dismiss your claims without evidence. You can't outright dismiss my claims without evidence.
But
And
I
in
have
fact,
evidence. I've
it,
provided
you,
evidence. You've
you
seen the
haven't.
evidence.
Where's the evidence? You,
Vegans failing on the vegan diet,
that's
hundreds of them.
well, one like
Why isn't that evidence?
well, that's like if I turned around and said, okay, look at all the people consuming animal products, and let's have a look at how well they're doing. I mean,
But
yeah,
I
if I was
already addressed this. I already addressed this.
or because they eat plants as well. Like,
They
I
do.
mean, like,
That's
okay,
not a
yeah. So
controlled experiment. I'm giving you a controlled experiment.
how is
You're
this a
just
controlled? This isn't
well because
controlled
vegans.
experiment. I mean, if we're talking about controlled experiments, like what double-blind placebo-controlled trials, where you're
No, no,
showing
no,
me
no. It's
anecdotal evidence of people who have reverted from veganism, who have a vested interest in going ex-vegan in the first place because it's advantageous for their YouTube channels, for one. It's advantageous for their success not only economically, but their success within influencing individuals and selling their way of life, and also because they just don't want to be vegan anymore, because being vegan is not necessarily the most fun thing to do when you want to consume animal products like most of society do and consume, for example, a lot of the processed foods that they will go and then consume. You'll see a lot of these ex-vegans, for example, Nick Avocado, he went and started doing massive binges on like KFC and pizza, and you'll be like, oh, veganism wasn't healthy, I quit because of DHA. Now he's morbidly obese. I mean, come on, man. Like, what are we pointing to?
yeah. Those were mostly just assumptions on your part. You don't know what the motives of those people are, and the way
No,
they
but like,
present. Can I
we're talking
respond,
about it.
please? Can
Yes,
I
fair enough.
respond? And the reasons that these people present is, well, the reason why, first and foremost, the reason why I say that these are controlled experiments, obviously they're not double-blind studies supervised by a white coat. No, but they're controlled much more than the epidemiological evidence that you're providing, because these people are vegan, meaning they don't eat any animal products. Okay,
Well, so far
so
as we
they're
know,
very
yeah. I mean, like, that's
so
the whole point of a controlled trial, would be to make sure that they actually are following like the restrictions upon the trial. Like the
and
point of the matter
you
is,
don't have any of that as far as vegans go. Because
no,
it's
but
unethical.
you've just no. But the point of the matter is that what you've just pointed towards a completely anecdotal claim, and you've said, look,
What do you
it's
mean
fact.
by anecdotal? What do you mean
I
by
mean
anecdotal?
that it is literally just an object of your experience in which you've correlated a possible truth. You've induced the truth. You've come to a conclusion and then sought to prove it with the evidence that you see correlates with this truth that you have already
But what do you
induced.
mean by anecdotal specifically? Because a lot of people dismiss what's actual science as anecdotal because like it wasn't done by a scientist. It doesn't matter.
I
Do you
mean,
mean?
why? I mean, something that can be shown. Like when I talk about like scientific empirical rigor, I would say
Mhm.
that it has to follow certain procedural rules that show that it is trying to remove any point of relevant falsehood, that there couldn't be another explanation, and that they're actually deducing truth. They are going from one premise to the next in order to come to a conclusion.
Right.
Now,
So the hypothesis was humans can be herbivores. Then the person removed all the meat from their diet and ate nothing but plants, supplemented, did everything they needed to do. They went on chronometer daily. They logged everything that they ate. Like they've kept meticulous records. They've done this. This is scientific. Like I know the white coats and the high priests will reject this because
five,
their
six
authority
months, like
because
it's
there
not.
are because hold on,
Big.
let me finish. Because their authority is being questioned here, but people have conducted rigorous scientific experiments controlling for the consumption of meat by eating nothing but plants, and one after another they keep failing. And to boot, to document their progress, they have photos of their bodies, they have blood test results, they have medical records. So this is very much scientific. Now, the studies that you're bringing up they're not even that rigorous. The studies that you're bringing up that you're saying they prove, let me finish, that you're saying that they prove that meat causes these diseases, they're based on food frequency questionnaires. How many times in the last year did you eat meat monthly? This is the science that you're talking about. It's not science. It's not a scientific experiment. This is just information gathering, databases that are later being that information later being analyzed to death to get a certain conclusion. That's not science. None of those are scientific experiments. What I'm giving you are actual scientific experiments that people have conducted on themselves. To
Okay, so
me,
give me, for example, let me like for the crack. Why not? Let's go into one of these cases that has real scientific rigor behind it, and then we can say that like not only was this person not in any way agendered in it, for one, which we'll just have to.
they had an agenda. These
No, no,
people they're animal rights activists. They wanted to, and this is another thing, because they actually had a bias to prove the vegan diet correct.
well,
This
that's,
is
I
why
mean,
my
that's an
evidence is so
assumption.
strong.
Well, it's
No,
not.
it's
It's
not.
not.
No, no,
That
no,
is
it's
what
not
it
an
is.
assumption. Well,
Yes,
that's
it is.
okay. This is what they said. Okay, so you want to call them liars? You go on ahead. No, look, I'm talking about people
Well,
who
yeah,
were
yeah. But, I
animal.
mean, we'll call half of the scientists liars, but we won't call a couple of YouTubers liars.
No, no, no. Look, I'm not the one who's saying that we need to look at studies. You're the one bringing up studies. I'm not saying all scientists are
Yeah.
lying,
No,
but if we're
why,
gonna say that,
why would I seek to bring up studies is because of the idea that we want to remove as much as humanly possible the researcher from the research.
and what I'm
That
saying is that these scientific experiments that these individuals have conducted on their bodies trump your epidemiological bullshit. That's what I'm saying, because what these people
well,
that I'm hold on, let me finish. The people that I'm bringing up, they actually controlled scientific experiments. The studies that you're talking about are not scientific experiments at all. They're food frequency questionnaires. So
one,
I'm
I
talking
haven't
about
actually
actual science
brought
and you're not.
Well, one, I haven't actually brought up any studies for you to say that actually all of these studies are X, because I haven't brought any up as of yet for you to
Well, you
say
say, but
all of these studies are
you
X.
didn't bring up any specific studies,
I
but you
haven't,
say
yeah,
that
yeah,
you're saying that,
and then,
meat causes disease, and I know what that's based on. That's based on epidemiological food frequency questionnaires. It's not based on any
that's
scientific experiments. It
well,
isn't.
first, that would be like what you think it was based on. I mean, it could be the fact that I have a study, but like we don't know yet because we haven't actually gotten that far. Like, as first, like we'll get to the fact that this is supposed to be ethics in a second, but the fact that there's evidence, I would argue, on the contrary, towards how people are living their lives. There's evidence that you argue on the contrary to me. Then, and we both have no empirical data to relate to the issue as of right now. We can in the next debate, but as of right now, and we can pull each other's data into question. But as of right now, we have no data. So Hitchens razor applies. What is asserted without evidence can be dismissed without evidence. Now you're going to say, no, I am providing the evidence. And then what you're going to say is providing the evidence is you speaking, saying that you have the evidence. Well, actually, that's not evidence, right? That's you telling me there is evidence somewhere. That's like me telling you that it's raining outside, and then you go up to look, and I go, wait, don't look outside, right? Just take me word for it, mate. Like, it's just ridiculous.
Well, the evidence exists. Do I have it right here, right now to present to you? No, but you don't have any either. It wasn't
Yeah,
supposed to be about
exactly.
that.
So that's exactly. So I was like, okay, we'll just continue with an
Yeah,
ethical
but you've
debate.
made all these. But look, you've made all these claims about meat causing. Like I wasn't the one. I was talking about things that are fact, scientific fact. I was trying to be as logical as possible without bringing research into this, or as much as possible. You're the one who started saying that there's proof that meat causes blah blah blah. You're the one who actually started talking about
I'm
making
pretty sure
claims.
I'm the one that said, you know what, we'll sidestep all of the empirical information as of yet, relate that to the next debate, in which you could even pull into question or it implies can.
Yeah,
And we could,
but I don't understand how you could ignore all the empirical evidence and then pretend to have an ethical debate based on what? La La Land evidence? Like, what are we
no,
basing this? You
based
can't
on the
dismiss
fact,
all empirical
uh,
evidence. Yeah, we
well,
could
that's
have like a nice little conversation about concepts, but I'm more interested in reality.
well, yeah, I'm interested in reality too, which is why we need to have like data in relation to whether people can or cannot survive healthily on a vegan diet, which is what you're
It's
pulling
never
into
been
question.
done. It's never been done.
Well, one, I'm certainly not dead yet, and two, there it has been done.
Were you born a vegan?
No, but I didn't think you had
Okay,
to be
well then
born
it's
a
never
vegan.
been done. Well, but this is what veganism asks. It says that we're going to be vegan from now on, point blank, period. Right? This is what you're essentially
There
asking
are
for,
vegans.
and
There
you
are vegans.
haven't, and you haven't, and you haven't
I'm pretty sure.
sacrificed. You have not done this. You have not renounced animal products since the day you were born. Who
Yeah,
knows? Who is to say that you haven't built your body
why?
with enough animal products to a point where you can sustain a vegan diet for a few years? How long have you been vegan? Not since birth.
I've been vegan
So,
for 4 years, but the thing is that
but that's nothing. That's nothing.
well, yeah, well, we can bring into that. Like, we can go into that. I said as we talk about in whether veganism is adequate for those stages of life and development.
It's
Something.
not.
Well, that's an assertion. Again, like as I keep saying, you can't just assert the truth. Now, the
And you
whole
can't
point of
say that it is.
no,
Yeah,
well,
it's my opinion. It's my
yeah,
opinion,
exactly,
but my
exactly.
opinion
If
has the weight
you're,
of evidence on
yeah,
my. I have the weight of the evidence on my side. Of
okay,
course
yeah,
I
well,
do.
that's that. Well,
You
yeah, but
look, you need to understand something here. Look, the world eats meat. We've eaten meat for millions of years. We would not be here without meat. This is the hurdle you have to jump over. I don't have to like say, oh, veganism, will destroy people. Even though I am saying this, what you need to do is you need to prove to me that evolution is wrong, that
I don't
evolution
have to prove evolution is wrong. I don't have to tell you that Charles Darwin
we
some.
evolved we evolved eating meat, no?
Well, I think that we evolved eating meat and and plant products. I
Yeah,
think that
fine. I have no problem with that. But your
I,
diet is not meat and animal products. Your diet is
yeah, but then
or
what you're
plants
saying,
and animal.
what you're saying
Go ahead.
though is
Go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
that we couldn't sustain ourselves purely off plants when we would have had, I would argue, anthropologically, a primarily plant-based diet, and that we would have supplemented our diet in times of need with animal products. Now you're going to argue the exact opposite. Now that is
Yeah, but
factual.
logic's on my side, not your side.
How is logic is on no one side? That's
Okay.
the
Well,
point.
answer me this. Well, I asked you to explain to me how ancient food causes modern disease. You haven't been able to do that. You said that this isn't true. You said that
What do you mean
my
ancient?
question is
What I said,
illogical, basically.
no, no. What I said is that that these diseases did exist, and that the rates of these diseases have increased with the increase of animal products and certain types of animal products.
But that's
And
not true.
well,
Okay, I
yeah,
know we're not gonna. I know we're not gonna agree on this, so I think we should just move on. That's. I
that's
I
great.
completely disagree. I've looked at the evidence, and it's whatever. That doesn't matter, I guess, because I can't provide the evidence right now. But the point remains. How is answer me this question? How is the most successful hunter in the history of this planet? How is the most successful hunter on this planet not a carnivore?
Well, we're also the most successful gardener on this planet, and why we're not a herbivore?
We have been the most successful gardener for maybe 15,000 years. It's some parts of the world, less than 500. We've been the most successful gardener. Whereas we've been the most successful hunter for millions of years. So, well, there's that.
Like when we look at the anthropology of it, I mean, we're also being gatherers.
Yeah.
So
Well,
like
and the reason why we've been
we're the most
the reason
successful gatherer as well. I mean, if we're
the
going to go
reason I just wanted to add that the reason why we've been successful gardeners is because of animal agriculture. That's what's allowed.
yes, I mean, surely, of course. I mean, there is absolutely no evidence of that, and horticulture can exist independently of animal agriculture. So why would you say that? I mean, like if we look at, I mean, like what if it wasn't for cow shit, we wouldn't be able to grow plants? Is that the only argument you're going to be able to give? We can't talk about synthetic fertilizers or even things like volcanic soil.
Uh, yeah, I mean, what you're talking about is not practicable, and
Is
it's
it
not
not?
sustainable. I mean, yeah, you can do it, but it's not
I
sustainable.
mean,
What you're talking about,
what about permaculture?
well,
If we use
and
certain plants
well, and the fact of the matter remains that that's not how it's been done. It's
well,
not
I
how
mean,
it's been done historically.
well, one, humans have not historically been the most sustainable species at all. Like, that's not saying that it's like saying that just because we haven't been, it's like saying, like, for example, that let's take you being a hunter. Let's say if someone was a hunter, should the hunt with a spear or a rock, or should the hunt with a rifle? Right. Well, I think most hunters will hunt with a rifle for a reason because it's a more effective way of hunting. Now, if you say that, okay, we shouldn't hunt with a rifle and instead we should hunt with a rock, well, then that's the same argument you're making there, where I'm saying, well, maybe we could have permaculture, maybe we could have more sustainable forms of agriculture. And then you're like, oh, no, that's not how it's been done. But in relation to like how we've actually, the foods that we've consumed, they haven't actually changed that much. I mean, there are ancient grains and ancient like tuberous vegetables that we've ate for hundreds of thousands of years. So I have no real and fruits for that matter. And also, if we look at hunting, a lot of people's what's that?
Well, he's not here, I guess, but uh, there's no way these grains have existed for hundreds of thousands of years and so on and so forth. I'm not saying that they didn't necessarily, but that's not the grains that we eat today, obviously, and the fruit that we eat today. As all of you guys know, I know I'm preaching to the choir. The fruits and the vegetables that we eat today did not exist, hundreds of thousands of years ago, blah, blah, blah. I
Wow.
mean,
I could hear you, man.
no,
I'm very.
I was trying to entertain the chat. I don't,
I understand. I
I
disagree,
don't know
but
if you were hearing what I said, but like all the, just to answer your point, all these plants that you think have existed forever, they haven't.
no,
Something like broccoli, chard, and all these cruciferous vegetables. I could even go in the garden and pull out the mother plant that all these other plants were hybridized from. And if you were to eat this thing, that broccoli and all these other things, anything you could think of as a cruciferous vegetable is essentially grown from this wild mustard plant. I think I see one over there. It's absolutely disgusting. It burns your throat, and unless you process it heavily and cook it, you're not going to feel good eating it. So what we've done, and
the beautiful thing is
I'm not saying,
we can eat broccoli, can't we? That's the great thing about it, isn't it?
look, I'm not saying people did not eat some plants also. Obviously we did. That's not what I'm saying, but I think we should just move past this because obviously we're not going to agree, and that's not the point, I guess. Maybe if you want to, it's very difficult for me to move on because I still think the burden of proof is on you that people can, as a species. I'm not saying an individual living as a vegan for 10 years when he already was eating meat from birth till he was 30 years old. I'm not talking about this. That's irrelevant. It doesn't mean anything, but honestly, to prove the vegan diet scientifically as viable for everybody on this planet or in general, you'd have to have a multi-generational study, this is obviously impossible
Okay, so that's an
in a
appeal to
metabolic.
futility, isn't it? Like, I mean,
No,
like if we
hold
look at
on,
it,
hold
like,
on, hold on, hold on. Well, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. If as far as like if you want to bring up science and you want to talk about, well, the science says this and that, no. In order for you to be able to make this statement that the science is on the side of the vegan diet, this is the burden of proof. I'm telling you. I'm not saying that this is possible, and I'm not expecting this from you, but I'm saying this is unfortunately the burden of proof that you have to deal with, because what I
I
have
mean,
on my side is, let me finish. What I have on my side is millions of years of human evolution while eating meat. Some populations eating primarily meat and surviving. And this is how we got here. This is what's on my side. You don't have this evidence. So this is why the burden of proof is on you. And this is why the burden of proof, the standard of the proof that you need to provide is so high. You don't have this.
well,
I'm
one,
not like, I'm not going to step. Look,
I
I'm going to
don't
tell
think that we
you.
need to provide that level of evidence for showing that it's suitable for all stages of life and can be done through with the average
But
everyday
that doesn't
individual.
mean
But,
anything to me. What you just
but,
said.
but,
It's meaningless. It's
well,
suitable for all stages of life. So what
shall we,
that
shall
means,
we,
let me translate. Let me translate that for you because
if it
I've
said that
heard
I need
this.
150
I've
years
heard
of
this.
population study on tens of thousands of people who've never existed for to convince you, who won't be alive then, that this is a viable diet. Well, that's simply impossible. I mean, okay, that's just
Well, then,
impossible.
right. But then the next
You,
best evidence
all
we
you've
have.
said, yeah, so all you've said there, though, is that I will not be convinced that a vegan diet is in any way healthy or
No,
positive.
no, that's not what I said. That's not what I said.
Well, it kind of
I
is.
said
It's
no. It's
inferred.
not.
It's implied. It's implicit within
Uh,
what you suggested.
But if you let me finish, you'll be able to understand what it is I actually meant by this. You're the one talking about science. Okay, and I'm telling you what science would have to do. The sort of science that you're talking about is bullshit. It's completely pseudoscientific hogwash. It's not even a scientific experiment. It isn't. Look, bring the studies. We'll talk about the studies. I
Yeah,
don't want to talk about the studies anymore.
yeah,
Now,
that's cool.
you're look, this is
I
this
would,
is where
I
I'm,
would,
just so you understand, this is where I'm coming from, why I'm not going to step away from this. I ate a plant-based diet, not vegan, not strictly plant-based, but 95% of my calories came from plants, and it fucked me up. As soon as I took the plants out and I ate meat, I healed all kinds of things that I won't even list here. This is, you have to understand, this is where I'm coming from. You're coming from somewhere else. Your limited experience of this vegan diet that's doing whatever it's doing for you, whether it's working or not, you're taking that out of the context. You're ignoring the fact that you built your body with animal products. This is ludicrous. Like, sorry, I don't
I
mean
mean,
to get heated, but you don't.
I
The
mean, it's
thing
not
that you
ludicrous, is
guys,
it? Like the one there's been lifelong vegans who've vegan bodybuilders, lifelong vegan bodybuilders for that matter. I think is it
there aren't any lifelong. I'm sorry, there
Brian?
aren't any lifelong vegans.
No,
They don't
they
exist.
are. Yeah, they do.
No,
You have, like,
you're saying there are people in this world who got,
who have been
detached from
born
their
vegan.
mama's tit and they started eating nothing but plants. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what I'm
That's not
saying.
possible. That's not
How is that not?
possible.
How is that not possible? Because you don't think it is.
Where, because it's never been shown that this is possible. It's
Well,
never been
let's.
shown.
I would say we'll get into the studies next time, man. We'll talk about it.
You don't look. These studies don't exist. But please bring me studies that show these children raised in a metabolic ward with
Okay.
no animal products. They don't
Right.
exist.
So the people that were so I was willing to even have a look at those ex-vegans who you bring up, and those people, they're okay to bring up. I bring up what is an anecdotal vegan person who's been raised.
Mm-hmm.
That's not okay. That has to be a metabolic ward. So scientific rigor and empirical rigor lies upon me alone, and you can just assert the truth as much as you like.
No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying
Right?
is that
I would like not.
the burden of proof is on you. Also, this is what you're not understanding. Veganism makes the hypothesis that humans can be herbivores, okay? As soon as I show you one person that cannot be an herbivore, as soon as I show you one person, your hypothesis fails. You need to redefine of you. Yes.
Aren't you a carnivore?
What do you mean by carnivore? Yeah,
Like
humans are
you eat
carnivores. We're all carnivores.
no, but I mean you eat exclusively animal products, don't you?
I eat some plants.
And some plants.
I Yeah, I eat an animal based diet with some plants. But look, this is what I'm saying. The scientific hypothesis made by veganism is that humans can be herbivores. This hypothesis
And
hasn't even it's never been proven. Not that you can actually prove a hypothesis, but anyway, there's no evidence for this. It doesn't exist. So as soon as I
well,
could show you, hold on, let me
you know,
finish. The way you prove a hypothesis is by falsifying it. You want to prove yourself wrong, right? And if you can't prove yourself
Well,
wrong, hold on, let me finish. If you can't prove yourself wrong, then that means you're right because you can't prove yourself wrong. Now, if the empirical data, these vegans failing, and everything we know about nutrition, for starters, the fact that you admit that the vegan diet is inherently deficient, all of that disproves your hypothesis. Just because you could show me a vegan here and there that's making it okay, supposedly, on the vegan diet, that still does not prove your hypothesis that all humans, that the humankind can be herbivores. Because again, as soon as your hypothesis is falsified and somebody fails on the vegan diet, there goes your hypothesis. You need a new hypothesis. That's how science works. I'm trying to be like very
wait, so
logical and scientific
again,
here.
well, you're being logical and scientific, but then you're holding me to two separate standards. For one, you're saying that I would have to show you that 100% of the people, everyone could be vegan. Okay,
I'm not even saying
then,
100%,
but
but a
then okay, so
significant portion.
that's better because you were saying that the Adventist people might just be genetic freaks a minute ago. So, I mean, if we're talking about genetic mutations and people surviving on certain diets, I mean, certainly there may be those individuals who cannot absorb APA, for example, and they might need supplementation to get DHA properly. And then you'll pull it, oh, well, they fail on a vegan diet. I would say, well, no, I mean, they can take the supplement, but also you'd say, well, that's not the diet. And then you see how I can see how that argumentation would go down. Now, I'm happy, as I said, well, we'll discuss numerous times. I've said we'll discuss the empirical data. And we'll go into the studies, what your claims are and what my claims are, and we will search for truth together. We will see if either claim can be falsified. And that's something that I'm happy to do. But right now...
So you don't have an answer to what I just said?
Oh, right. Say it again. Go on then.
Sorry, there's some background noise. Look, we know humans, the only reason why, well, we don't know that that's the only reason, but we know we're here because we've eaten meat, right?
Well, we know that we've ate meat in the past and we're still here, yeah.
We've always eaten meat. Insofar as Homo sapiens has always eaten meat. There's not one single vegan population in history or in our archaeological record. Doesn't exist. Like it's never happened. Your assertion as a vegan is that this is possible.
I mean, like, for one, like, you can't, like, just because there hasn't been a population that's vegan, and that's not necessarily the case. I mean, there has been a lot of at least vegetarian populations in the past. But let's say there hasn't been.
That's not vegan. I don't even want to talk about vegetarians.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Well,
because that's just proving my point. Please understand that.
No, as I said, I'm happy to say, let's say there wasn't even a vegan population. Just because there hasn't been a vegan population doesn't mean that vegans could not, that you could not be vegan.
I did not say that.
No, but it was implied.
No, it wasn't implied. I'm telling you the facts. Do you reject the facts? There's never been a vegan population. We've never recorded a vegan population, right?
From what I'm aware, I can't think of an anthropological account of a whole
right.
vegan
They don't exist. They've never existed.
Yeah.
Don't you think there are good reasons? Look, if you're saying that
is the implication. Like,
well, obviously, yes. I'm trying to make logical points, but if you won't let me get them out,
you see, that's
instead of interrupting me and strawmanning my position, it would really help if you allowed me to get it out so that I could actually say what it is that I want to say without you misinterpreting everything that I say. Look,
no, fair enough.
Look, we're not going to agree on this, and that's fine. I don't want to beat this to death. Like, you think people can sustain the vegan diet, in general? Obviously, some people will always fail no matter what happens. I get that. But you're saying that in general, as a species, we could sustain the vegan diet. I disagree. We're not going to come to any agreement here. Maybe we could move on and talk about ethics a little bit.
Yeah.
I guess I'm going to have to suspend disbelief for the time being and not bring this whole fact that we need to eat meat to survive. But I want everyone listening to know that this is, I don't want to say a mock debate, but in the sense it's going to be taken out of context, and I'm going to not concede necessarily, but just ignore the fact that I don't believe we could survive without eating meat as a society. Let's just talk about the ethical implications, maybe in a vacuum, if you will.
Yeah,
does that make sense?
So let's make the proposition, assuming that a vegan diet is possible, and practicable towards health and well-being of an individual, that would it be more morally would it be more moral to be a vegan?
Well, that depends on, what you consider moral or what you don't consider moral, right?
Well,
Obviously,
yeah,
we're going to have to agree in order to have a debate. We're going to have to agree on what's moral behavior and what isn't.
okay. So, okay, what would you say? For example, well, give me an example of an immoral act.
Murdering a person,
Okay, why is it immoral?
I don't know.
No, no.
It's just wrong. I just like I have this feeling in me that's just telling me that it's wrong, which is reinforced by society that's telling me that that's also wrong. And, because I understand that, well, I guess I wouldn't want that done to me as a human being. Thus, maybe I should respect other human beings insofar as that. However, there are certain situations where killing someone, I guess that wouldn't be murder, right? Where killing someone is justified, which, because murder is an
It's unjustified
unlawful,
killing.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Why would you say that this should not apply to animals
because they're
or
not
not?
human, because livestock animals are food. Humans are not food.
But humans could be food. I mean, depending on where you lived. I mean, if you're in Polynesia and tribes and that, like, depending upon. I mean, I'm not saying it's a good idea,
Well,
but
I mean, again, desert island scenario, yeah, shit happens. I wouldn't call that moral. I would say that
I mean, if
it's
we're on Easter Island, yeah, like the people suddenly become food. Like, but let's say like people could be food right now for any of us if we're willing to go out and murder and eat them. I mean, cannibals seem to think so, and they can live in the Western Hemisphere and all around the
yeah,
world.
but
So
but
why
their
would
ethics
we?
are not my ethics. I
Okay,
don't
they're
hold the
ethics.
same ethic as they do.
Okay, you don't hold the same ethic, but why would you say they were wrong?
Well, maybe within their society they're not wrong. Maybe
No, I
this
mean
is
in our society, why wouldn't they be wrong?
wait, if we were to transpose one of those people from Easter Island into our society.
Well, yeah, but there's cannibals that get arrested and imprisoned in our society as
Well,
well.
obviously, I believe that that's wrong. Yeah,
But why?
because you're murdering a human being, and that's
But
wrong.
why would murder be wrong?
Well, I already explained that. This just
It just is.
well, I mean, this is. I don't know. I don't know. To be honest with you, I could tell you that this is just how I feel. I feel this to the bone, and it just feels wrong. But then some people would say, well, it's because you were brainwashed with this idea. Somebody put this in your head since you were a little kid, and I would say, well, is that really the reason? No, I just feel to the bone that it's wrong, and I think enough people agree with me to where it just makes sense that
Okay,
this
but
is.
okay, so like contemporary understanding of murder is very different to what it would have been in the past, for example. Even the way in which the judicial system works. For example, killing someone was typically seen as a crime, not because you killed another individual, but because you killed a subject of the king, and and it's an affront to the king because you were property of the king. So let's take it like that. Why is killing people wrong? Well, if we can say, oh well, it's only wrong in reference to what causes the king harm. So can we kill people outside of our countries? Can I kill other people or another individual? Can
Wait,
I
wait, hold on. You're
like
saying a
like
king demanding
like
someone be killed was okay?
yeah? Well, inherently okay. Yeah, that was absolutely
No,
fine.
I don't think it was okay.
Well,
It was
no,
wrong.
well, I don't
The
think it
king
was.
was wrong.
I wouldn't agree with it, and I would argue that it was not moral. But I'm saying at the time it wouldn't have been murder. It would have been seen as lawful.
And
Um, Well,
okay.
yes, exactly. So what I'm saying is that lawfulness and cultural convention aren't the basis for moral consideration. Would you agree
I
with that?
already told you I don't know what like I know you want to get into the meta discussion. I don't know. Like honestly, I don't know. I don't know. I just think it's wrong. It's wrong
Well,
to kill people. I do I have to justify? No, it's my belief.
well,
Everybody,
yeah,
every worldview ultimately rests on a belief that you just can't explain it because ultimately it's just going to be a belief. I could tell you
yeah, but
that
that's like
a higher power commands that this is such, right? And then you could agree or disagree. I could tell you that it's wrong because, as I said, this is just how I feel. Like it's just that's it. You're gonna have to work with this. I'm
okay.
not going to like. I don't know what it is that you want me to say. That like I don't base my morals on legal law. If that's what you're saying, even though there's a lot of overlap there, that's not the basis for my morals because I think a lot of laws are morally incorrect.
Okay, right. Well, let's look at it like this. There's a lot of things in which you may want to bring in the world, right? You might want to legislate. You think that there would be laws that you would want to instigate in the world because you think that some laws are wrong, some laws are right, and you think you would be a good judge of that because of how you feel. Now, another person might say, well, that's actually wrong. Okay. And that everything you're saying is wrong. Now, what you're saying is that we're in this absolute thanks, this absolute plural position where we're just where there is no right and wrong, and murder is actually not wrong, and you just feel that it's wrong, or you're saying that there is an actual right and wrong.
So you're saying it's subjective, that my
Yeah, are you
worldview
saying?
is
Yeah, I'm saying. Are you saying? Are you coming from an absolute subjectivist position?
no.
In which
I'm just
Because
I don't know.
I mean, like if we're looking at, like, for example, you could say that, oh, there's a higher power and all that. Well, I could
Hmm.
also say that science doesn't prove anything. If we're talking about what can be aesthetic ideals, people like Nietzsche brought up aesthetic idealism and actually referenced science as an aesthetic ideal in relation to being actually an offshoot of Christianity. And atheism being one and the same. So the whole point is, if we're saying that all truth is subjective, then what we're saying is there is no right and wrong ever in relation to
I'm not
anything.
saying that all truth is subjective at all. I'm not saying that.
Okay, so what are you saying? That
That
there is
murder. I'm saying that murdering people is wrong. That's what I'm saying. Can you work with
yeah,
this or no?
yeah. I'm trying to work with this. I'm trying to work out why you're saying it's wrong. So you're saying that it's wrong, but it's
I
wrong.
told you I don't know why. I
Okay,
just you could maybe I was brainwashed from being a little kid. It's just been beaten into my head that murdering people. I don't remember this happening. I don't remember this happening at all. No one ever told me don't kill
here's
people. I just knew not to
trauma,
kill people.
absolute trauma.
No, I like I no, I'm being honest with you. Like no one has ever told me not to kill people. I never felt the need to do it. I always understood on some level that it's wrong. Now, in my belief is that it's because it's objectively wrong to kill people. That's what I base my belief on. But I can't give you any concrete evidence because I don't think it exists. This is
Why wouldn't it
from
exist?
well, maybe it does. I don't know. Maybe you could point it out. From ever since I can remember is what I'm saying. Please don't make me repeat this again. I understood murder to be wrong without people ever having to tell me this. I understood that. Why I understood this to be wrong, I don't know. It leads me to believe that morality is objective, but not everything that people call moral or immoral actually is to be put to that test. It's not even a moral consideration. Like eating food is not moral or immoral. It's neutral. We eat food. It's natural, neutral.
I
Does that
mean,
make any sense?
yeah, I see what you're saying, but I mean, like, look at it like this. I mean, you're saying that killing people is wrong, and then I would say that killing an animal is wrong. And then your basis for saying that killing an animal isn't wrong is because of your emotional states. And what I'm saying is that those emotional states don't give any real justification beyond yourself. Now, what I think, and I think is inherently true about you, is that you are a being who wishes to seek states of goodness. Now, I mean, at the base level, that has to be at least some form of pleasure, or fleeing from pain. That's something you must do, right? Now, I think that we could both agree that you seek pleasure and you avoid pain. Would you agree?
I guess you could say that most of us do, yeah, or all
Yeah.
of us do, whatever that is.
Yeah, because I think it's inherent of subjectivity. So I would say that being a subjective agent in the first place forces you to have these evaluations. Now, the thing that you seek would be the most desirable thing, yeah? So like that would be the state of happiness in which it would be what I would argue isn't a single state of happiness, but rather a happy life, a good life. You wouldn't just seek one moment of pleasure, but you'd seek actually a multiple moments of pleasure. You'd seek the most happiness you can achieve within the totality of your experience on this earth. Now, that you will use logic to deduce. And that logic revolves around epistemics, and epistemology is I would argue, comes from language itself.
I don't completely reject suffering, though, if that's what you're
No,
trying to
well, you
say. I
don't
don't
have to.
reject suffering.
We don't have to reject suffering. I mean, would you say suffering is bad though? Like it's something that if you could
No,
avoid, you
it's
want to
not
avoid it.
bad. Suffering's not bad. I wouldn't say that.
Well,
I don't base my morals on how like. what I wish my preference is, right?
Okay, so they're not just your preferences. That's good. No, I agree. That's actually, I mean, that's at least you're not an axiomatic person. Although you're saying at the same time you kind of are, because our worldviews are induced in some way. But the point is that like,
Look, sometimes I want to kill people. There's people I don't want to kill, but I just feel
well,
that it's wrong to do, so I don't
yeah,
do it.
yeah.
So I
Well,
don't base. So it's not based on feeling. You're trying to bring this down. Well, it's so whimsical. I just, my morality is just whatever I feel like. No, 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 no. It's not like that. Because literally, there's sometimes people who I literally want to kill, but I know it's wrong and I don't do it because, well, I don't know why exactly. It's just in me.
I mean,
It's
arguably,
it's innate. It's like,
yeah.
I want to say it's objective, but I don't care.
I I would
I've
argue.
never I've never actually sat down and like try to figure this out. This is just what it is. I can't,
See,
I don't fight it.
I would argue that it is objective, and I would say that it's in you because it's an internalized moral construct from language itself, produced by more than one agent. It's mind independent. It's produced by more than one person. You've internalized that, and the good life, the good person, the good action has been uh, comes from logic itself, from our ability to reason what is good and bad, and how we agree what is good and bad between us. We have all had conversations about, well, I don't want that to happen. Well, I want this to happen, and we talk about, well, like this isn't good and that isn't good in non-contingently. We'll be like, and this growth of this concept, good and bad, and thick concepts which are really in relation to this concept. So, for example, what is in relation, like, for example, that is rude. That would be another moral concept, because what we're saying is that would be based on the premise that treating someone without respect was immoral, and that's something that we came to the conclusion.
Yeah, but I don't think
This
that's. I
becomes
don't,
this becomes like rudeness, and then we start
just
to
for the record, I disagree. I disagree. I don't think it's immoral to be rude to people. I just
well,
don't.
okay, that's fair enough. But the point is that I'm saying that the moral constructs of our society are in relation to the epistemic conceptual growth in which we internalize from being children and from our language. It's what our parents teach us. And it's not something that we induce. It's not something that you, for example, get from your feelings. It's something that is psychologically embedded within who you are. Now, that doesn't mean that it's not able to be like progressed through epistemics, through rational conceptual growth, as all of your knowledge has grown. In which case, I would argue that veganism is this next step, and I would say that veganism will be the dominant ideological stance of future generations, because it is more moral to consider the suffering of all individuals, and that includes animals, non-human animals.
But you just make a logical leap there by calling animals individuals. I don't consider animals individuals
Yeah, okay. So why wouldn't you consider an animal an individual?
because animals aren't human. Animals are
Okay,
food.
okay, yeah, okay. Animals aren't human, animals are food. But why couldn't we consider animals as individuals? What
We
about,
could, but I disagree. We
well,
could. I mean, you could do
well,
anything
well,
because of food.
you see, well, this is the thing. I could consider you food. It doesn't mean that you are food, right? It's what we're talking about is, are animals morally considerable? Can we consider animals in the same way we consider humans?
No, no, we can't
Why not?
because they're not human.
Okay,
Why would
okay.
see? This is completely illogical to me. You want to consider animals as human, but they're not human.
Okay, right, but this is where this is not. You see, that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to anthropomorphize animals. I'm saying that there is a common consideration being added to animals and humans in this situation. That animals already have these features in which we are considering in other individuals in the first place. We consider an individual's pleasure and pain, and that's what good denotes to positive and negative experience. We could not harm someone that did not have this experience, right?
No, not to me. Unless they're human, they don't. They're not part of any
So,
moral consideration. You have to be human. This is my view. Now you could disagree and have your own view, but that's you know. So what? That
yeah, well,
doesn't.
the point I'm trying to make is that even to gain your own happiness, I would argue you couldn't do that without epistemics, without actually considering with logic what is good or bad. And I would say that badness relates to suffering and the deliberate causing of suffering.
But
And
that's your opinion.
that's
I
not my.
disagree.
No, I mean, I can argue this from the ground up. I mean, I'll happily do that. I mean, this is where why I came to the debate, because I mean, as I say, like this is where I primarily focus my energy, arguing about ethics and moral consideration, and what is good metaethically. What does the word good mean? What is
But
it
why should
demean?
animals deserve this moral consideration? I
Why
don't have
should
any
humans?
moral
Well, why should humans?
because they're human.
But that's an assertion. That's something that can be dismissed. I
Yeah.
could, yeah. So I turn around and go, well, no, humans don't. And that's just fine, is
Yeah,
it?
but you don't agree with that.
Okay,
But
yeah,
that's not
just because
actually
I
you're not
do,
actually
well,
being
it's not
honest.
actually, but that's not about truth, is it?
What is it about?
Well, I mean, like if we talk about truth itself, like if we talk about what is true,
Yeah, but okay, you're saying that they deserve moral consideration. I'm saying they don't. Okay, well then prove that they do.
well, I try. I'm trying to say that the basis for how we consider morality in the first place relates, and the reason that we consider humans is based upon the fact that we can have pain and pleasure experiences. Now,
No, no, not in my worldview. That's not why. That's your worldview, and that's fine. You could
well,
have that worldview. My no, no. Hold on. Don't put this on me. I already told you why humans deserve moral consideration. It's because they're human. The reason why animals don't deserve any moral consideration whatsoever is because they're not human.
so
What's wrong with me saying that?
so it's ultimately subjective, and truth itself is based upon your mental states. Is that right?
If you think it's subjective, then that's fine. I don't know that it is. I already told you.
Okay, so if someone comes along, let's say they're a tyrannical dictator, and says that everyone else should be my slave, and they truly feel that way, well, I mean that's right, isn't it?
I never know because that goes completely against my worldview because you can't treat humans like that. You could
Why
treat
not?
animals. You
I
could.
mean, no, yeah, but that's what you think. I mean, come on. I mean, that's just what you think, but what you think is not necessarily true. I mean,
No,
what we
no,
can.
what you think isn't necessarily true either.
Okay, but like, well, this is the point. So what we need to
What
what we
is
need
the
to
point?
the point is that when we search for truth and how to, I mean, the whole point of morality, right? If we look at it, and someone's probably going to make a meme about us saying this so much, but morality comes from the Greek ethikos, which is about the behaviors in which we use to live our lives. It's about good and bad, right and wrong decision making. It's about, we already do seek like the good experiences and bad experiences, and flee bad experiences. Sorry. Um, what we need to work out is how to, not only how to achieve those good experiences, but what those good experiences look like for us to achieve them. What
Yeah,
is happiness becomes our question. So if I ask you, what is your happy life? Like, what is the good life for you? What is it?
raising animals and eating them.
Okay. And how did you come to that conclusion?
I tried it and I loved it.
Okay, right. So you've came to a conclusion that you've enjoyed phenomenologically that moment of sensory pleasure, and that this is bringing you some level of what would be phenomenological
Well,
justification, right?
it's deeper than that. It's deeper than that. I mean, it sustains life also. Let's not
Oh,
trivialize like feeding oneself.
well, yeah, but you can feed yourself with plants. Well, but we're gonna.
I can't. Maybe you can. I can't.
Well, yeah. Well,
My it's gonna destroy my health. Like that's just a fact. But I know that it's not about this. It's not about this. Okay.
but the so that's I mean
So
so the
why I don't understand. Because you have a certain criteria for what's moral, and I don't see how that's any more
because like
objective or
because
subjective than what I'm
this
saying is correct.
well, this is what I'm saying. I'm saying like when you're trying to seek happiness, the decision making process you're going to use to seek happiness, if it's inductive, if it's based upon presupposed belief, which I would say that your belief is, and I'd say that all individual beliefs are presupposed, um, then and has not been shown to be what is the good life for an individual to live, then it will be based upon like, or the moral life, which I would say is the good life, the happy life. And I'd say
But
that
that's your
morality.
idea. That's your idea of what's moral.
Well, no, I would say that happiness and virtue are the same thing, because the whole point of ethical decision making is based around achieving the most
But the
desirable
same thing
state.
doesn't make everybody happy.
Well, no, but what we need to use is logical rigor to work out what makes most people happy and why. what makes people happy and why, and what happiness truly is.
Most people
And
happy, so this
and
is
it's
this is going to be
like
an
well,
appeal to
no,
popularity.
no, like as in, I just mean like what makes people happy. I'm not saying that it has to be an amount of a population. I don't say, oh well, everyone should just be farmers because some people like gardening. No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm trying to say is that those ethical decisions you make in relation to what happiness looks like for you, in relation to how you should live your life in relation to other individuals. And I know you said that you don't believe in animals as an individual, but I mean other beings, other sensitive beings, subjects. Then we have to work out then what is desirable in those cases. And the only way that we can do that is with logic. And logic considers not your desires alone, but more than that, it considers everyone's desires.
Right,
Because those,
people's desires,
yeah, people's desires, right?
not animals'
And
desires. They're not.
well, even
I
if
don't
we're
consider them.
no, but let's say like that's fair enough from this position where you're saying like uh, this concept of equality only applies to humans, and then I would say, well, what is the basis for this concept of equality? And then what would you reply to me? Like I would say that it's the phenomenological experience of pleasure and pain, and that's why we entered the language
No,
game
I
in the
think
first.
humans have. I think humans have natural, rights. We're just, because we're human, we have these natural rights, and it is what it is.
You
That's my
can't.
belief.
Okay, so
And no other being on this planet has these rights because they're not human.
okay, so what do you
I'm
mean
not.
by
I'm not.
natural?
Well, this is just what I mean. Like, you're born, you have these certain rights, and this is how it is.
Yeah, but what do
Like
you mean
I
by
don't
right? It's like what do you mean? Like
like the
it's
right to to life, to the pursuit of happiness, and blah blah blah. Right, all that other
okay.
good stuff
So
that's
why
encoded in various constitutions of different
why would you
countries.
say that you have the right to life, happiness, liberty?
Because I'm human.
Okay, but what about education? Do you have the right to that?
I mean, what do you mean right to an education? I could demand someone to educate. What do you mean by that?
Like, for example, that you have the right to decent education within a city state.
No, not necessarily.
Okay,
I
so
mean,
you have the right. So, like, what
I
is it
have
that
I have
gives
the same I have the same right as everybody else, I guess, but you got to prove yourself. Obviously, you have to show a certain level of aptitude in order to be like. But it really, I don't really understand like specifically what you mean, right? I don't think everybody has like the right to demand to be educated by somebody else, but but you shouldn't stand in my way. Basically, is what I believe. If I want to follow certain channels to get an education, then no one has the right to stand in my way.
I mean, maybe an easy one would be like private property. Are there any limits to private property? Like, can someone own as much as they want?
There's no such thing as private property in this world. I wish there were, but it doesn't exist. Well, I mean, not for us, not for you or I. We don't own
I mean,
anything. You
I
can
mean,
never own a piece of land. You or I, we could. So, I wish we could. What do you mean, like private
like,
property?
well, I mean, like when you say like rights to life, okay, at least I mean, like, why is it that we would consider that your life in the first place? I mean, at least you are your own property, surely. Like, I can't just take your kidney, right?
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Why?
Why you can't take my kidney?
Is there a reason why? I mean, because like,
Yeah, I already told you why.
because you feel like you don't want us to take your kidney.
No, because I have a natural right to life, and
But I'm trying to get to the point of like, what is it? What is the sufficient reason that justifies this
well, but
right?
no one. I don't know.
You see, I would say that you for example, like that you would go, well, if I even said to you, why wouldn't you want me to take your
But you
kidney?
can't look. You have these
You're not
beliefs that
gonna
you yourself. Hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on. You've been interrogating me a little long. Let me respond, because I could flip it around on you and say, well, what justifies your belief of what's moral or what's not? Ultimately, it's going to come down to what you believe in, and it's going to come down to what I believe in. So this is where we stop. This is my belief, and I don't know what sort of grounding you're looking for here, but I already told you this is as deep as it goes. This is what I believe. This is. I don't know where it comes from. Okay, I know what you're trying to get at. You're trying to get me to commit to either subjective morality or objective morality, and then I have to like justify it. But no one can justify anything, because ultimately well, you could justify a lot of things, don't get me wrong, but ultimately you're going to end up with your worldview, whatever it is, it's going to end up in, well, this is what I believe.
Well, no, I
It's
don't.
ultimately it's going to be rooted in belief.
I would
So
disagree.
tell me, okay, well, tell me why
Like,
eating meat.
we were talking about logic before. Is that just a belief? Is it? Is it just a?
Well, logic isn't belief, but it has to be based in something. And if you dig deep enough, ultimately you're going to end up in
I mean, like,
every worldview is rooted ultimately in belief.
I mean,
Belief that you exist. Like, there's people saying that, well, we don't really exist, or we can't possibly know that we exist. We just believe we do. I don't want to go down that path. Definitely don't want to.
I don't actually care. I mean, if we want to talk about just the experience itself, we can. I
No,
mean,
it's boring. It's
yeah,
boring.
I mean, like,
But
we can't.
but but why is we've been at this for a while, but you haven't convinced me that eating meat is morally wrong. According to who? According to what? Like, why is
What
it
I'm
wrong? Explain it to me.
what I'm trying to argue is that like any measure of deductive happiness, like trying to reach happiness through deductive reason, will not lead to an immoral conclusion. And what I'm trying to argue is that morality is based upon the subjective experience of individuals, which is where it comes from in the first place. What is moral, what is good and bad, ultimately denotes to states of mind relating to positive and negative experiences.
So it's
And that's
subjective.
no, I'm saying that's the like there are so like you. It's like making a, for example, like imagine this, right? If I'm saying that there is a claim, like there are 100,000 people in this world that believe that, well, actually, it's, there are 7 billion Christians, right? I'd be like, yeah, okay, there are 7 billion Christians. Now that's an objective fact, okay, right? Like, I mean, it mightn't be because I haven't actually checked the statistics, but let's just
Okay,
assume.
let's right.
Like, I mean, let's check. We can check if you like how many Christians there are.
No, no,
I
I
don't.
don't care. Let's assume it is. I agree.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. But the point is that will be an objective fact. So I'm making a point about subjects, not any given subject. It's an argument about subjects that exist, that that there are minds that are having experiences, or that there is the experience, which I would argue that there is we must fundamentally at least agree, even in a solipsist view, that there is at least one experience. And I would say that from that point, we will get to the point that there are more than one experience if we apply reason to it, like, and we give it real logical rigor. But through the fact that other people exist and that we exist, then there are positive and negative experiences of the world, and these are the basis of all moral decision making. And that will ultimately lead us to concept formation in relation to what is good or bad. You say it's wrong to kill because murder is harming someone. You are taking someone's vital interests and you are acting against them. You are taking their will, their freedom from them. Their subjectivity has been violated. Okay?
No, I'd
And
say it's wrong to kill someone because it's wrong because they have natural rights. Some people call them God-given rights. Whatever the hell. This is just what
and
I
I would
believe.
say that's an appeal to nature.
I don't care.
Okay, so that it's an like for example,
That
like,
doesn't mean it's invalid.
well, yes, actually it does.
Why?
Because an appeal to nature is when you derive an ought from an is. So that's actually definitionally invalid.
So so why is killing animals and eating animals wrong? I don't
But
understand your line of reasoning there.
because what I would say is that you have to value your own experience at a baseline, and through valuing your own experience, you will be forced, necessitated to
That's what you
value.
believe. That's what you
No,
believe.
that's what I'm arguing for. That you will be
Yeah, but you
necessitated.
believe this. This is your belief.
Well, what do you mean? Because I'm thinking it? Are you saying that it's a belief?
No, no, you believe that this is what I'm thinking, and I'm not thinking what you're thinking. I told you what I'm thinking. You're trying to tell me, however you see the world, you're putting that on me. That's not how I see the world.
No, you
I
said you
don't.
see to based
The
on
reason why I don't murder people is
your
not because I wouldn't want to be murdered. Is that what you're saying? That like because I wouldn't want to be murdered, that's why I don't murder people. Is that what you're implying?
No, I'm saying that the basis for all of the concepts which you've internalized will be justified with that. If we look
That's
at it, if we apply logic, otherwise they would all be committing the naturalistic fallacy and can be dismissed as just aesthetic ideals that can be rejected on a whim.
sounds like a belief. I don't.
That's like actually hurting us there. um,
So why is killing animals wrong? I mean, that's your whole premise. You haven't gotten this there.
yeah,
Why is killing animals and eating animals wrong?
okay, like so what I'm saying is that the basis for right and wrong comes from this positive and negative valuation which you have to do as you are a subject. And then because you will always seek that which is most desirable.
There's no evaluation. You're
What,
putting you're
what do you mean
I'm
there's no
I'm
evaluation? There's no are you denying the existence of qualitative experience?
the reason why I don't kill my neighbor is not because like evaluate this if it's right or wrong. I just know not to do it. There's no I'm not I don't even consider it.
Okay, you
I'm not
might.
evaluating anything.
Okay, so okay, it might very well be possible that you're not a rational moral agent. Okay, but let's just assume that there is an actual basis for this, and that you're not just doing it purely out of emotion, which you are. I mean, you're doing it purely out of emotion, and you're just doing it because, well, that's what you think is right or wrong, and you're actually acting purely
But that's
without
exactly
any.
what you're doing. It's because you think
No, it's
something
not.
is. Yes, it is.
No, I'm applying
So
logic
why? So tell me. Okay, well then I asked you a question because you've been asking me all these questions. I'm asking you. Ask me or tell me. Explain to me why killing animals is wrong. Explain it to me.
because the overall increase of suffering will.
Yeah, but I don't
Uh,
care about suffering. I already told
okay,
you this.
just be right. Okay, so I agree that you don't care about suffering, but I'm arguing you should care about suffering.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. You're telling me how I should think, and I'm telling you, no, I have my own way of thinking, and I disagree with what you're trying to impose here. I
Yeah,
reject it.
your way of thinking, I'm arguing, is wrong based upon the logical premises that I'm offering. It's like me saying, "Oh, by the way, right? Like, let's imagine, right?
You're
You
saying
like,
I have no grounding for my beliefs.
yeah, I'm saying that.
Yeah, and you don't have when, and ultimately your worldview rests on a belief too.
Okay. Well, no, I mean logic and subjectivity, which are mind independent. So these aren't that's like saying that all right, my beliefs rest upon the earth existing or the universe being real. That your beliefs rest upon your mental states. It's like, for example, you having it's a difference between ontological truth and epistemic truth. Mine's based upon epistemology, the basis that it is knowledge, that it is truth in and of itself, that it actually is the case. Your belief is inducing that it is the case. It's the difference between mind and reality. Yours can be
What
just
did I induce this from?
your emotional states.
That's your assumption.
Well, yes. I mean, where else are you going to get it? Did you get it from logic? If you
I don't
did, then
know. Maybe I was born this way.
so you are.
Maybe it's coded. Maybe it's coded in my DNA.
Well, I'm not saying that like this concept could not have a rational basis. In fact, I would argue that there are many rational bases to this concept. And as I said, I was pointing out the basis of that concept, the rational basis of that concept that would not break the Azort gap and not be a pure assumptive process. Um, but if you are saying that it is that let's say it is like rational and coded in your DNA, that would literally that actually like that I mean that is like again in the pure nature. The point is that
Well, the
let's say
reason why you're speaking is like because it's encoded in your DNA, like so that you shouldn't be
I mean
speaking.
I mean it depends on what we mean by that. I mean if we say
The
that
reason why you have thoughts like ultimately rests in your DNA. So
I mean like okay yeah my
nothing
cognitive
you
ability.
I should just dismiss everything that you say because it's coded in your DNA.
No, that's not the point. I'm saying that you can't say a belief is true
You're
because it's coded in your DNA. That's what you. It's
well,
about
I didn't say it is. I'm saying I told you from the very beginning. I don't know where it's coming from. You're
yeah
supposing and assuming that you know where it's coming from, and I'm
yeah.
telling you, you can't prove this.
Well, well the way I'm proving it is by using what I'm arguing is for rational evidence, and that's saying that anything else, right, in this scenario, would be subjective, and I can dismiss it as being purely an assertion.
Yeah, and I could dismiss whatever you're saying is purely an assertion.
Well, no, you can't because you can't dismiss logic as like, for example, like, could you dismiss that a circle is round?
Well, no, I mean, right. It
Right?
is.
Because it is because it relates to reality and logical rigor tells us that that a circle must be round definitionally.
Yeah, so
Now,
how is killing animals wrong?
Yeah,
Can
that's
you
what
get
I
to
would.
it?
Yeah, so and that
Can
would
you
be an
tell me why killing and eating animals is wrong? Because you haven't done that.
because morality is based upon a priori synthetic truth, and to get to that,
Because
we
you
have
say so.
no definitionally. As I've said, what morality is in relation to good or bad.
So there's objective morality, is what you're arguing.
No, I don't think you understand.
No, I don't understand.
No, right. So what I'm trying to say is, for example, right, everyone seeks the most desirable state. That is happiness. But happiness isn't something that we just conjure up out of nowhere. I don't think that we can just think, oh, this is my good life. This is what I want, and just be right. We must apply logic to that. Right?
Yeah.
That concept of happiness needs to be deduced logically, as all concepts do. So good, bad, right, and wrong, they can't just be induced from your worldview. They must be determined by by a logical basis.
So you're saying morality is objective.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. How so?
I thought I've showed that.
No, you haven't.
Okay, so in what way would you reject that, like, for example, that there is a. Okay, so
What's the basis? What's the basis for this objective morality that says I shouldn't eat animals?
I've already said that the concept of happiness in relation to subjects, that there is good or bad, positive and negative experience in relation to subjects, and that this
So,
decision-making process and how we
yeah.
enact it to achieve happiness will force us to come to the conclusion that eating animals is in fact wrong, that it is bad, that it will lead to more suffering, and that is the desiderata in which we use to find out what is
Okay,
good
so
or
you're
bad.
saying it's okay, so you're saying eating animals because it causes suffering, it's objectively wrong?
They
Because
call it
suffering
unnecessary suffering, yeah.
sounds like circular reasoning to me here.
How does this sound like circular reasoning?
Well, you're saying the basis of morality is what cause the least harm, right?
I'm
Am I
saying that
getting this?
the basis of morality is what will cause the overall most positive experience.
Right, and what did you ground that in?
The fact that we seek positive experience.
Yeah, but like for me it differs what positive experience is. For you, positive experience would be not to eat animals. For me, it's to eat animals.
Well, that's like what you're saying there is that what desires, the first order desires, those things that we desire right now, what preferences differ. Yes, you agreed, but you said that in fact, you can have an understanding of right and wrong that does not relate to those preferences. In fact, you even said so much that it's not that I don't want to kill people, in the fact that I don't feel like I want to kill people, it's that I know it to be wrong. This is
Right.
what I would say is a second order desire, that you do not act on that first order desire and instead not act on that second order desire, what is rational, or at least grounded
Right, that's
in.
your assumption. That's your assumption about me, and I told you that that's not how I come to this conclusion.
Why don't you kill people?
I just know it's wrong.
Yeah, okay, but
There's no calculus. I'm not. It has nothing to do with.
One, you can't know it's wrong unless you've applied logic, and then you say, "No, I don't know."
I feel okay. I feel that it's wrong. It's something within me. I've already explained this. I don't know why I have to repeat myself. But what you're trying to do is you're trying to take what I said and you're trying to strawman my position by saying no. Actually, you're trying to psychoanalyze me by saying no. This is why you believe this. That's not why I believe that.
One. I'm not trying to psychoanalyze you. I'm making a claim about subjects as a whole.
Everybody, yeah. Like this is how we come to our moral decisions. And I'm telling you, I didn't come to my moral decision like this. So you're wrong.
What I'm also saying is that let's say you didn't. Let's say you did just induce truth, and that just so happened to believe that one thing is the case. You have no reason for believing that.
That's fine. I'm okay with that.
Okay, you might be okay with that, but then ultimately, the decision-making process you use to achieve whatever goal you are trying to achieve is flawed because you're inducing truth. You're assuming what truth is. You're not actually using logic to determine what truth is. You will just, if you do live a good life, it will be by accident.
And how are you different in this respect?
Because I use a rational decision-making process so that
the minimization of suffering, minimizing of suffering, right?
Yeah. And I would say that I would even go so far to say is that even the reason that you would value murder in the first place, I mean, you said that it was induced, it could have been induced culturally. I would agree.
Yeah, but it's an assumption that, we should minimize suffering. That's an assumption on your part.
It's really not. I mean, like the
Why? Because
basis.
most people agree?
No, because
Then
the
why?
basis for that is because that we cannot help but to want to minimize suffering. That
No,
comes from.
that's nonsense. Minimization of suffering is not like the utmost principle that on which morals rest. When you look at nature, and yeah, I'm appealing to nature. Well, you're a natural being. I'm a natural being.
No,
The
no.
rational, like
Like,
you know, two bucks, for example, in the wild, they'll kill each other just to procreate, right? They will make each other suffer. They will risk death in order just to pass on their genes. That's what that's what drives us, I would say, is the desire to
one, I
procreate.
mean, one, you can't. I don't think it's decent to compare us against non-human animals which don't have a rational decision-making process. Two, I would say that what is the basis for their desires in the first place? What are they trying to achieve? And I would say a sense of satisfaction that they are being driven by a want for this positive experience of sex and flee, for example, the
Those
when
are
they
all assumptions. Those are all
well, what do
assumptions.
you mean there are assumptions that is literally like something feels pain and it is bad. I mean, like if it is not pain, if it isn't bad in the first place, it it's a psychological experience of negative. That's inherently true, and it's an inherent, it's a self-evident truth in our experience alone, and it's not only that, it's what pain is. Unless you're denying that pain is a bad experience or suffering is a bad experience, can you suffer in a good way, like that? That doesn't relate to another positive experience either now or in the future.
But see, this is my problem with your whole philosophy here. You're using good to define what good is. It just seems really circular
No,
to me.
no, I'm not. I'm using. Well, one, I'm saying that. Well, like if you look at it like this, that there will be fundamentally positive and negative valuation of the world. Yeah, I agree. There has
So
to
it's
be.
subjective. So it's
No,
subjective.
no, that subjects exist and that they have subjective experience. Yes, that is the
Yeah, but
foundation of.
what you think, but I still don't understand that what you
You
believe is.
like, what you're seeing as subjective is that there are subjects who have good and bad experience and can relate to happiness. What I'm saying as objective is how they understand how to achieve that happiness.
But
That's
everybody
the
doesn't agree on this, how to achieve the happiness. People
well,
have
sometimes
different ideas.
we agree on a lot of things in relation to
Yeah, we do
morality.
agree on a lot of things, sure,
And
but a lot of things we don't.
even when we apply reason to it, we do agree on a lot of things.
I
We
don't.
say
I
like,
just don't. Sorry. You just. I don't see how eating meat is unethical. Because it causes suffering. That's what you're saying. But so what? I
well,
don't. Like
this
you're not making any sense to me. I know. Like. eh, I know you're. You think you've thought this out, thought this through, but it's not making any sense to me. It's just not. It seems to be based in suffering or wanting to minimize suffering. Okay, fine. Well, but what suffering is it depends on what I think is suffering, what you think animal suffering is wrong. I don't think it's wrong. Like
so I mean, like suffering would be in relation to that which is undesirable based upon our nature or natural states, what we have valued as positive or negative. It can be somewhat natural, as in coming from what we are, our biological makeup, and it's also somewhat cultural. We can internalize forms of psychological suffering. These do occur within us. Now, what I'm saying is that regardless, there is suffering. Yeah,
yeah, that's subjective, what suffering is.
yeah, yeah.
we agree we agree on a
We
lot of
agree.
it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But
So subjects.
ultimately it's subjective.
So subject. No, well, it's no. We agree that subjects exist, but why are
but
you
there's
saying?
no but there's no suffering without a subject.
Yeah, exactly. But that doesn't make something subjective, does it?
Of course it does. Your suffering is subjective to you, my suffering is subjective to me.
Well, what you're saying
Eh,
is that the phenomenological experience in which we are using
there's
is
certain kinds of pain that I could enjoy that you don't enjoy, for example. So you would
yeah.
consider that suffering and I wouldn't. It's subjective.
Okay, but look at it like this, right? You right now, right? You can have a positive and negative experience that you are aware of, self-evidently, something that you can't deny. It's something that's happening to you. However, how do you know that something you do in the future will induce a good or bad experience? How do you know that, let's say, you said you enjoy killing and raising animals, right? How do you know that killing and raising animals will bring you happiness, like bring you
No,
some, well,
I said
not
I
necessarily-
enjoy raising and eating animals.
okay, sorry,
I don't.
raising it. Okay, yeah, you don't know. I don't mean to straw man you in that regard.
Yeah,
Um, okay, regardless, I mean, like, let's make it a little bit easier and less controversial. Let's say you enjoyed, I don't know, I mean, what is it that you do for fun, like on a day-to-day basis?
I go for a walk, or I
Okay, that's
garden a
good.
little bit
Okay, so walking. So how do you know that walking brings you happiness? Like,
because there's
oh,
a certain physical response. It thins my blood, and there's a visceral physical reaction. It
so
makes me,
you have a positive feeling.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay, so how do you know how you're going to achieve that positive feeling in the future?
by continuing to go for walks.
Is that an assumption, or is it that you have determined rationally that when you stand up and walk outside and go for a walk, that it will induce this positive phenomenological experience?
Yeah,
Yeah. So you're using reason, you apply logic, right? Now, what I'm saying is that how we live our lives is based upon this understanding of how to of how to act based upon logic. Now, if I was to say to you, like, that, let's say there was a, like, let's say you really enjoy walking, but let's say there's a hurricane outside, right? Now, let's say you've never even been in a hurricane before, but you look outside and you see that it's raining, you see that it's like really windy and horrible. You might think, you might get the feeling that you still want to walk, but you might decide that it's not a good idea to walk because this won't bring you a good experience. How have you determined that that experience won't be good?
I mean, come on, this is just
It's
obvious.
it's it's yeah, it's because you use logic. The concept of that
Well,
not
yeah,
being good in this
right.
circumstances is being deduced by logic. Now, what I'm saying is that the way to deduce what is a good life.
I would just add that some of these things aren't as logical as you present them. There's definitely an amount of logic there, but sometimes it's just instinctual. You just feel, right? Which is what brings me back to, how I feel about human beings. Like a lot of this isn't logical. It's just your body just responds to this, and it like yearns for it. It's not actually, I don't always conceptualize and rationalize, oh, I need to go for a walk because I don't feel good. Sometimes, but not always. Sometimes I just go for walks and I just do it. We just do these things sometimes because, well, this is who we are, right? We like, sometimes we eat when we're not hungry. It's just we do these things sometimes without rationalizing stuff. Sometimes it's rational and there's definitely that component, but a lot of the times it's also instinctual. Or
Okay, yeah,
maybe
but do you
we
think
don't
that
have free will and something else is doing that. I don't
but,
know.
but let's say that let's say that we do sometimes act instinctually and that we don't use logic, and let's say we don't eat when we're hungry, and sorry, we eat when we're not hungry, and we make ourselves sick because we're already too full. We'll make ourselves too full, whatever. We haven't considered that we've ate something earlier, or that what we're eating may not be good for us. Then it would be rational to conclude that we made the wrong decision there, that our desires weren't even though they felt like they were right, like subjectively, it felt like it was going to bring more happiness, it didn't. And that happiness is not induced, it's discovered. What will be the good life for you isn't something that is inherent in your opinion of what it is. It comes around from you working out what it is. And what I'm saying is that that can only be done through a logical decision making process. And
Yeah, I disagree. I think it can be done logically, but a lot of the times it's not.
I think that for you to know, like, in any way, shape, or form, that it is the good life. And I don't think this. I mean, I know this. I mean, for it to be knowledge itself, definitionally, it has to be. It has to have had logic applied to it, because otherwise, it's not knowledge. It's just assumption. It's assertion. It's unverified assertions. So, for it to be knowledge in any way, shape, or form, then it must be justified by logic. I mean, don't get me wrong. You could stumble upon happiness by accident. It may be very well the case that the you accidentally stumble upon what is the good life for you, but I don't believe that it's likely to reoccur. I mean, you're gambling with your own
Right.
existence.
Ultimately, like I said, ultimately everything rests in belief. This is just what you believe.
Well, no, it's not. It's not. Well,
That's
I
what you
mean,
said.
well, it's not what I believe in the sense that this is what I believe. I mean, this is what is definitionally the case.
Yeah, so why is so in other words, it's illogical to kill animals
I
and
mean,
eat
that yeah, yeah,
animals?
yeah, that's what I'm getting at. That
How
it's
is
an
it illogical?
because the decision-making process to determine your happy life, I'm trying to argue, considers not just yourself, but considers other people. So, for
Okay,
example,
fine. So I'm sorry, I'm just getting a little bit like worn out with this.
no, that's
Maybe you're
fine.
right. But okay, so ultimately I'm gonna throw you a curveball, I guess. Killing animals is wrong. Well, I mean, your existence on this planet, you're killing animals, right? Your food, the way you procure your food, or the way somebody procures your food for you, they end up killing animals. So why is that okay?
Okay, well, what I would say is that ought implies can. So this is where we would disagree for the most part. So even if you, let's say you agreed, let's say I know you don't, but let's say you agreed that if we could be vegan, it is the more moral lifestyle, that it is actually better. But in fact, we can't because we're carnivorous omnivores, as you think.
Well,
Then
and I would say it's not actually moral because veganism kills many more animals than, sustainable animal agriculture.
I disagree, and I would like to say, like for example, let's look at it. Like for example, what you're probably going to bring up is ruminants, grass-fed animals, and you're going to say that actually, if you grass-feed beef, that it will kill less animals than animal agriculture because of the thousands of animals that have been killed in the production of crops. Well, one, I would say that the world's population cannot be sustained on grass feeding. We do not have the land or the resources to sustain the world's population through this method of farming. Two, I would say that given that we cannot sustain the world's population on this method of farming, that not only are we talking about the environmental impact of the animals that are being raised, so we'll have to create more deforestation, displace a greater amount of animals, kill local predators, which will ultimately disrupt food chains, causing an abundance of herbivorous animals, which will then have to be killed to prevent them from starving to death. Then we will create a greater amount of suffering. So it's not like that it's a ipso facto less animals have died. No, the overall consequences are that the same amount of animals will die. But regardless, let's say that even in this case that they weren't, it's not sustainable. So that means that we would have to farm them in another way. And then we move on to factory farming. And that factory farming is not only causing
No, I'm sorry, I have to stop you. That's completely an assumption on your part to say that it's not sustainable. You don't know.
how is that an assumption? Okay, so let's look into the
Why is grass feeding animals not sustainable? Why?
because grass feeding animals takes a hell of a lot of land. Like
So,
we simply do not have the land. I mean,
of course
animals
we do. Of course we do.
do we? Like, I mean,
Yeah,
like
of
look at it
course
like
we
this.
do. We do.
Animals are
No,
grass
the
fed.
land exists.
Considerable amount. Well, okay, the land exists, but then we're going to have to cut everything, all the forests down to produce enough land.
No, we're not. No, you could. Why do you need to cut trees down to grow grass?
Well, because we need land to grow grass. That's why.
So there's what's
And
called nitrogen fixers. There are trees in the bean family that will fix nitrogen in the soil, and that makes the grass grow taller and more nutritious, actually.
yeah,
So,
so like things like clovers, for example, do that.
but trees, you don't have to. No, you don't have to cut down trees to grass feed animals.
Yeah,
And
but
most of this planet, most of the land on this planet is grassland. Overwhelming majority of the land on the planet is grassland, and it's not being used to raise animals. So you can't
okay, well,
say
okay.
that we hold
So
on.
let's
You can't say, hold on. You can't say that we can't do this when we've never tried. So that's ludicrous. And I'm not even saying that we should. That's the only thing we should do. I think the most sustainable way to produce food is to use animals sustainably and to grow crops sustainably by using the way it's always been done, without chemicals, without pesticides, without all this other BS that destroys the environment. Now, look, you didn't answer my question. The production of your food necessitates that animals die, no?
well, I mean, it depends on like obviously the method in which it's produced, isn't
Okay,
it?
so, well, but the way things are right now.
Well, the way things
We,
are right now, but in the way things are right now, then we would say that animal agriculture was worse. So if we're
well,
talking
for
about,
you, no, you and me, you and I. Let's see who's more vegan. Where do you get your food?
Okay, I get my food from the supermarket.
From the supermarket, and
Yeah.
you eat a wide variety of food from all over the world?
Well, I typically just mostly canned beans. I
That's
eat a
all
lot of
you eat?
canned. I eat a lot of canned beans. I eat a lot of. I eat some nuts and seeds. I eat like bread, a lot of grains.
And those nuts and seeds, do they grow in Scotland, I'm guessing?
I have absolutely no idea, to be honest. I eat things like, for example, I eat walnuts, and I think they're typically from California.
Yeah,
I eat flax seeds. I'm not sure where my flax seeds come from.
they're probably from
Uh,
South America.
yeah,
Probably the
linseed or
cheap.
whatever.
It's probably the cheapest way to
Uh,
get them.
yeah,
Yeah.
which is an issue with capitalism. We can talk about that as well.
Yeah, but
And
like animals die in the production of your food, right? You agree with that?
yeah, I would say that probably the case. Yeah.
Probably. I mean,
I mean, yeah, like I'm agreeing. I'm saying it's the case. Like,
yeah, yeah. So why is that okay? And me, let's say, now this isn't the case, but I could technically I could kill two animals a year and feed my wife and I, or just one big steer would feed me for a year, roughly. And I would just end up killing one animal, right?
mhm.
Versus you procuring all these different, and as a vegan,
I
because
mean,
you
we're
have to.
talking. Are you talking healthily as well? Like we're talking that, like you believe that that would allow you to live a thriving lifestyle. It's not
No,
like
I'd have to kill more. I'd have to like eat some chicken eggs and maybe milk a cow. Let's say I would kill 10 animals a year.
okay.
10 I would take 10 lives all in all.
I couldn't tell you how many animals that are killed per person per
Right.
production of crop off the top of my head. I mean, like I would have to sit and do quite a bit of maths for that.
Right. Shouldn't we figure that out if, the minimization of suffering is
Well,
important?
not
Shouldn't we
really,
be
because I feel
concentrating?
like, oh, let's say I was in your situation. Let's say I was in the situation where I could grow my own food, and I had the space to grow my own food. I mean, I live in an upstairs flat, for example, in a urbanized area. So let's
Yeah.
say I had the
Where there
space and
used to be a forest, the animals used to roam through this forest, but your presence there destroyed that,
well,
contributed to it. You weren't the original settler, but you're contributing to the destruction of the habitat that used to be there, right?
as I said, like it's what implies can. You can do what the most you can do. Like I believe that. It's like that's the
Yeah,
basis
and I
of.
think I do more than you.
Well, I think you may do if you do more than me. I would say that's because you're able to do more than me. That doesn't mean that you could not do more again. That's like, for example, me saying like if I was in your circumstances, I would grow crops alone. I would not kill animals.
You can, you just choose not to.
How could I?
Why couldn't you?
Okay, so as I've said, I haven't the land or the resources, neither the
You
time.
buy land
I,
and resources and you
how do I?
find the time.
Okay, well, find the time and buying land of resources. That's one of my just magic and money out the air.
I mean, get a job, make
Uh,
money.
get a job and make money. Well, cool, man, but I've got to eat in the meantime, don't I? You know what I mean? Like I'm not saying that it's not a good way to live. That's not.
Well,
I
but
mean,
let's say your diet kills more animals. I'm pretty sure it does than mine does. Your way of life, everything that you do kills more animals. Why are you more ethical?
well, I would say that one, the intentions towards not causing harm are based upon the rational decision making process that we use. And that way, if I did have the land and resources, I would be making more ethical decisions than you. And that way, that when I do procure more land and resources, I will make more ethical decisions than you. And it's not about being better than others. Like, I'm not trying to come into this debate like I am morally superior to you, bow down to me, worship me. I
You're
am
saying me
absolutely.
eating meat is unethical because it causes suffering, and I'm saying you
Yeah.
eating grain and beans and whatever the hell it is you eat
As,
causes
I, as,
suffering
as I
too.
said, that ought implies can. We do the most we can do. Now, I'm saying that if I was buying meat
You
from the
could do more. You could just eat nothing but meat and kill one cow a year.
how could well one like I very much doubt that I could do that. You even said yourself that you couldn't
Well,
sustain
because I
yourself.
wouldn't take supplements. I don't want to take supplements. You could take your supplements that you're taking right now and then just kill one cow a year. And then, if you think you need more vitamin C or other, look, a lot of people are
Well,
doing just fine eating nothing but beef. I'm
well,
not
one,
saying you
well,
should.
one like as I argued before, I don't think grass feeding animals is sustainable for the size of our populations. I remember seeing estimates, for example, that we would need like the 5 times the amount of land we use today to feed um grass-fed cattle because of the way that grass feeding works. They eat the grass, they move on to the next plane, and while the grass is regrowing, they need more grass to eat, right?
Yeah,
They need
but the grass is available. The grass is
yeah.
available.
So what we need is a large amount of land. But when we talk about
We have the land. The land is
well,
there. It's just not being used.
you're asserting that the land is there. We're talking
No,
about the
it's
amount.
there.
There is
You want me to show you?
right now we have 33. We have 70 billion animals living on 33%, from what I'm aware, of the world's on the world's landmass. And that's not including the fact that people also eat sea animals. Now, if we were to take that and say that we were to grass feed animals, which is more land intensive, we simply do not have the resources available. Right, I think I was trying to get the studies I had before on like
Do you see? Do you see? Do you see that?
Do
you see all that land? Do you see all that grass?
No, I don't see anything. I just see black and your picture in the middle.
I'm sorry. How about now?
Yep. Yeah.
You live in all that grass?
You live in a
see all that grass? No,
yeah.
this is the majority of this country, and there are other countries like this. Well, there aren't any cows up there. Look, there aren't any cows up there. There could be. Hold on, let me finish. Jesus, dude. There could be all kinds of cattle there right now. There could be all kinds of goats. There could be all kinds of everything over there. It's not being used. This is happening all over the world, man. You have no idea what you're talking about. You've been brainwashed vegan propaganda, bro. You have no idea what you're talking about. I'm not going to let you get away with this BS because you live in the city. You live in a box in some city, dude. You haven't been outside very much, probably. You haven't been outside of like your little bubble, but you think that just because Dr. Greger says something, and I'm sorry to be a little rude right now, but I'm sick and tired of your guys' bullshit. You guys have no fucking clue what it takes to grow crops. You have no idea what it takes to raise animals. You don't know what the world looks like outside of your, wherever the hell it is you live, like, but you have these grand notions about what we can and cannot do. It's bullshit. All the land I just showed you could be used to graze cattle. It's not being used right now. That's all. I'm like, dude, you have no clue what you're talking about. I'm sorry.
If we're talking about like what we can do, for one, I would say that why don't we use things like hydroponics? I mean, we could use that to raise crops. We could use an even less amount of space, lower amounts of water, and ultimately feed more people with less land than we would ever need. It would also cut down the pollution, for example, from agriculture into streams, and which has polluted 35,000 miles of river in the United States alone. So, I mean, we're talking about environmental sustainability. It's far more sustainable. And if we're talking about what we can do, then there are more viable plant-based alternatives. If you're talking about what happens now, then I would say that even then, like I could go to the supermarket and I could buy grass-fed beef, assuming, right? And let's say I went and bought grass-fed beef, and let's say I had the money for that because it's fairly expensive, right? And to sustain the amount of calories, let's say 2,000 odd calories, I would have to eat a considerable amount of food, right? A considerable amount. Now, let's say it wasn't more expensive and I could do it. One, I would argue that I am not only I am contributing to a business that is not environmentally sustainable, and ultimately cannot be universalized for the population.
Yeah, but your crops, the way you're attaining your food right now, is not environmentally sustainable either. Grass-fed animals are very much environmentally sustainable. Of course they are.
They cannot be universalized for the whole population.
That's an assumption. That's an assumption. I don't know if it's true or if it isn't true. I think animals in animal. Oh, you're gonna look this up. You think you're gonna Google something that I experience every day with these hands? You think you could Google away the reality that I live? I don't think so. Sorry. Look, I think personally the best way to do agriculture is with plant and animal agriculture in concert. I think that's the best, most sustainable way, not just plants or just animals. That's my opinion. But I still don't understand why you think it's okay for your diet to kill animals and not okay for my diet to kill animals. That doesn't make any sense to me. If I am to agree with you that suffering is to be avoided.
I agree, with the minimization. So if I could, like, let's say I was in your position, I would grow crops.
You can be in my position. You choose not to.
Well, it's not about choice, is it? Like for example.
Of course it is. Are you not a free person?
Well, I am a free person, and I just don't
No,
happen
you
to have
no.
all
Come
the money.
on, come on. You choose to be you chose to be who you are, right?
Oh
Do
yeah,
you
I
not have
definitely.
free will?
hundred
You ch
percent.
Yeah. So you choose to buy the things that you choose to buy. You choose to live where you choose to live. You
Well,
could
no, but
choose something else, but you don't. You choose not to.
okay, let's evaluate my life, right? So I was born to a lower class family in the northeast of England. I have a terminally ill mother who I take care of, and I live in a upstairs flat in the middle of the northeast of England, right? Now, I'm going to magic up overnight a considerable amount of money, not only to move house, but to move into the country, to move my mom into the country, who I must look after. And with all this resources, I'm then and time, because now not only that, I've hired a carer for my mom, because that's also why the hell not. And I start gardening, I start farming, I start living this more ethical lifestyle. That would be excellent. I mean, I have a PayPal. Um, if you would like to help me achieve this ethical lifestyle, I'll hundred
Yeah,
percent.
but you're not doing anything to achieve that ethical lifestyle.
I am right now. I'm on
How
YouTube.
much were those
I
tattoos? How much were those tattoos?
actually got them for free.
Sure.
No,
Like,
I'll get the bloke. He did it for
look,
portfolio work.
I'm not trying to like, judge you. I'm really not. I'm sorry about that. Like, but ultimately, I believe we choose the life that we choose, and you chose to kill animals with your diet in different ways than I've chosen.
Well,
And I just don't see why what you're doing is
I
morally any
try and
different.
avoid. I try and avoid.
Even I'm saying that I don't see how what you chose to do is any way, shape, or form morally different, even within your own subjective worldview. Uh, just
Because
judging you by your own standard. I
given the
don't think you're
situation
doing.
I am in now, I do my utmost to avoid animal suffering. The situation you're in now, you deliberately cause animal suffering where it could be avoided. That's the difference.
No, I don't.
Well,
I create more sentience than you ever would.
okay, you've created.
I bring animals into this world. Like I facilitate more and more animal life every day. Not every
Oh,
day, but yeah.
well, I'm not an act utilitarian. We're not going to ramp up the numbers of creatures and just say, well, there's so many alive. Of course, like the overall utilities went up. No, it's what the value of their experiences. And for example, I
Their
would say that
experience is great. They love
yeah,
it here.
okay,
They
and
have
then it's
lots
like,
of I if okay,
how did
so
it
if
feel overall when you shoot them in the head? Well, I mean, I don't know how you kill them, but like I'm assuming, like, how did they feel overall when they're murdered?
they don't feel anything.
Or did they not? No.
No, they don't.
Okay,
You
so let's
stun the
assume
animal and then you kill it. It doesn't feel
let's
anything.
let's assume that it didn't even feel anything.
It
Does it
doesn't feel
not?
anything.
Let's say it doesn't feel anything. Does it
Yeah.
not have an interest in life? Would it not prefer to live?
So why don't they run away?
What, you think that they offer themselves up to you?
Why don't they run? I mean, you're assuming a lot about these animals. I'm just asking you questions.
Well, I'm
Like
assuming. Well,
justify why to me why you're assuming that these animals want this or they want that. Why do you
I,
believe that they?
well, I mean, a good justification would be that you've raised them, and the fact that they don't know you're going to murder them. I think if they did know you were going to murder them, I think there's a decent amount of evidence behind how animal behavior works that they would run away. Um, yeah, and I mean, like if you
They
look at
would run away. I don't
yeah,
know about that. And I
so
don't
you
murder
think
them. It's not murder around these parts. We call that slaughter.
okay,
It's
well,
called feeding oneself.
hell, you can
The
one.
animals that die in your food production. Stop virtue signaling. Is all I'm saying. Please.
I'm
Look,
not virtue signaling. Actually,
murder,
I'm not.
murder. Come on.
Is. I understand that it's a Nietzschean concept based upon aesthetic idealism. Now, what I'm arguing for is that my moral view comes from logic and is not subjective. Now, yours is purely subjective. You can't justify it in it. We're talking about virtue signaling. You've sat this whole time and you've told me not only am I wrong in every given case, you've insulted me. You've told me various amounts of things that are just not the case. You've told me you are like, where do you get your tattoos? Why aren't you? Why aren't you like this? Why aren't you like that? You had to go about veganism. You've had to go about people. You've said that you're deluded, that you're crazy, that you're this, that you're that. I haven't done any of that. No, I might
Because
put it.
a lot of the things that you say are just patently untrue. And this is my problem with vegans. You guys don't know what you're talking about. You make a whole bunch of shit up. You Google things and you think you know the truth. I live the life that you guys talk about, acting like you know what you're talking about. And I'm sorry, I'm not going to let you do that because you think you Googled something about sustainable agriculture from, the World Health Organization or the UN. Like, come on, you have no idea what you're talking about. And that's
I mean,
just an objective fact, and I don't have to prove it to you because I live this life, and I
no,
know. Look,
it's
where we live, there was no plant life. The land that we purchased, which you could very well afford if you just wanted to, but you don't.
oh
Um,
right, okay, yeah, yeah.
you could buy a piece of land in Ecuador for $2,000 if you want to. I'm sure those tattoos cost more than that.
As well, one, as I said, I got them for free. Two, I'm a full-time carer, so
No,
like,
look, yeah,
no,
okay, you're fine. You're right. You're right. You're right. You're right. Like, I don't actually expect you to do what I do. I don't. I really don't. I don't mean to imply that. I'm just kind of I'm fucking around a little bit because, well, I'm a little bit tired and a little bit
that's
worn
fair
out.
enough.
And
Look, that's fair enough. Like, but what I was trying to express is one, you cannot just say that the life you live is um lets you know all of these facts. Now, it is a fact that you live the life you live, but the conclusions that you draw from the life you live, they are not facts unless you've applied logic and reason, like reason itself to it. Because unless you can say that there's a deductive evidence that there is deductive empirical data on what you're talking about, then it's anecdotal. It's not a fact. Definitionally, it's not the truth. It is what you think to be the truth.
no, just because I don't have the resources right now to demonstrate the proof, that doesn't mean that it's anecdotal. I'm
Well,
still speaking the truth.
yes, it does.
Well, for the sake of our conversation, yeah, to progress the conversation, it would make sense for me to present the proof because you're going to challenge everything that I say. However, you could just as well look this up for yourself, and you'll realize that everything I said, other than what's my opinion, is fact. You could do
Well,
this on your own. We could disagree, but you can't tell me that what I said is not fact because
I
simply
don't think.
because I did not present the evidence right here, right now.
Okay, I don't think we're going to progress much further. To be fair, you're getting tired yourself. I'm getting a bit
I
tired of
am,
it.
yeah.
We can schedule a round two. I'm happy for a round two. I'll
So
provide.
you're going to bring the studies?
I'll bring the studies. You bring the studies. We'll have a nice
I'm not
long.
gonna bring any studies. I'm just gonna debunk everything you bring. I don't need to
Oh,
bring any studies.
well, okay, right,
I
okay,
look,
right,
I've seen the science. I've taken the look at it. You don't have a case. But
okay.
but hey, prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. Bring the studies and we'll talk about them. I'm not gonna bring any studies, but look,
Because you can assert the truth.
huh?
I'm saying that's just because you can assert the truth, and that is then the case, of course.
Well, you're gonna bring the studies and we'll find out. We'll find out who is right and who is wrong.
Okay, well, fair enough. We'll schedule round two and we'll take it from there. Anyway, thanks
Look,
for having.
man. Look, I just want to say, like, don't take this shit personal, man. Like you're a cool guy. I'm just, I'm emotional. You're emotional. Like we say things. I have nothing against you personally. Things got a little bit heated. I said my piece. Like, you're a cool dude, man. If I've offended you, I apologize. I didn't mean to. It's just, I'm kind of an asshole. It is what it is. I'm an asshole. So I don't. I've enjoyed myself. I would like to thank you for coming by. Like you've made me think, and you've stumped me in a couple of instances. I didn't really have an answer, so I stalled and I did other things. But like, I appreciate you. That's all I'm saying. You know what I mean? Don't
Yeah,
take this personal because it
I
isn't. It
appreciate the
isn't.
I appreciate the opportunity myself, man, and hopefully round two will be make fruitful. And thanks again.
Yeah, bring the studies, and I'll gladly entertain what you have to say. So thank you for coming, and thanks everybody for tuning in. I'm sorry we were kind of all over the place, but well, it is what it is. Take it easy, man.
Take it easy. See you later, mate. Cool. Thanks again, man. I'm gonna go straight off. Thank you, and I hope you have a good day.